second time in 6 years, Bruce Pearl taking the Auburn Tigers to the Final Four. They defeat Michigan State in Atlanta 70-64.
Williams throws the baseball pass. It is intercepted by Condon, and it's a great day to be a Florida Gator. For the 6th time in school history, the first since 2014, the Florida Gators are going to the Final Four. Florida 84, Texas Tech 79, and the Gators go to San Antonio.
In just the third year after Coach K, Duke is returning to basketball's biggest stage. He won an NCAA title as a player. He won an NCAA title as an assistant. And now John Shire is bringing this Duke team to the Final Four as the head coach. 85-65, the final here in Newark. Duke advances to the Final Four.
Strap in. The RipCity Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
.1 seconds left. No team has repeated as NCAA champions since UCLA did it in 1973.
You know, one of the things I've seen Duke do in the past in situations like this is try for the quick pass to half court and call a quick timeout so they can get in better shooting range.
There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Well, you got to love the NCAA tournament, don't you? What's up, my friends? Chad Doing live here at Spirit Mountain Casino as we get ready for the Final Four, which is going to kick off coming up at 3:09. Both games today, along with the championship game on Monday, are going to be on CBS. And I'm looking at the card right now here at the sportsbook at Spirit Mountain Casino. At 3:09 on CBS, Florida and Auburn. And right now the Gators are a 2.5-point favorite. The total's been set at 159.5. That's not bad for a couple of teams that can get up and score. At 5:49 on CBS, it's going to be Houston and Duke. Remember, all four teams in the Final Four this year are number one seeds. The first time that's happened since 2008. And right now Duke is a 4.5-point favorite here at Spirit Mountain Casino. And the total is set at 136.5. And, of course, the reason behind that, very simple. Houston, under Kelvin Sampson, is a terrific defensive team. They're a very physical basketball team, and they're going to get after it. Duke, I think, has got the top offense in the tournament. So we'll see how things shake out with the Final Four today. So come on down and join me. I'm going to be on air live until 4 o'clock, and we'll be talking Final Four. We'll be enjoying the Saturday. What a beautiful day it is. And we got 1 week left in the Trailblazers regular season. 4 games remain, starting tomorrow against San Antonio. They have a game Sunday tomorrow, Wednesday, Friday, and next Sunday, and then the basketball season is going to be over. Joining me on the program today on this Saturday edition of the RipCity Drive from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports, the Northwest premier entertainment destination. I'm going to be talking with the sportsbook manager, Justin Ballinger, coming up here in about 15 minutes. We'll get his take on the 2 games today, the national semifinals, and what he thinks is going to go down, what he's seeing with the money movement. And then at 3:20-ish, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, my good buddy, my brother from another mother, going to join me. And we'll get his take on the Final Four, and we'll talk ball with B. Noe. Now, if you want to jump on board, you can call me at 503-248-0620. You can also find me on social at Chad in Rip City. And I'll be hanging out today here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Also, I'm going to be down here on Monday, and I'll host the RipCity Drive live from 3 until 6. And we'll be here for the title game, and I'll be hosting the March Mania drawing. So get down here and join me today and on Monday. And I know what's going to happen for some of you guys out there with significant others. The weather's really nice today. So you've got a game plan and figure out how you're going to get away from yard work or other activities that your significant other is going to want to do when the games tip off at around 3:09. So you got to plan ahead, and you got to be you've got to be creative with your planning, because you don't want to be stuck doing things that you don't want to be doing when you could be watching basketball here at Spirit Mountain Casino. And the same thing goes on Monday. Why go to work? Why go to work and deal with that nonsense when you can come down here, or maybe work half a day and then roll on down to Spirit Mountain Casino and get in on the action and watch the championship game? Now, I have one simple request. I just hope that Duke is Duke, that they can find a way to get over on Houston so that we get a chance to see Cooper Flagg in the title game. The problem is Houston's one of those teams where they want to maul you and they want to muck up the game, and they pull you into their style, and they can become a problem. So I'm very curious to see how things are going to play out with Duke and Houston, although I think the Blue Devils are going to have some issues with their defense today. So we'll get to the college basketball. Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino, coming up in about 15 minutes. But I want to start with the Trailblazer game last night, because there's something really interesting took place at the end of the game. And for those of you who watched it, you may have had the same thought that I did. So during the games, road games, what I'm doing, I'm sitting in Studio C, which is at Moda Center, and I'm at a desk with my microphone. I've got my laptop out, and I'm watching the game on two different screens in Studio C. So I've got the television broadcast to my left, and to the right, I've got the actual arena feed, which is in real time. And then what I do during the course of the game is I monitor what's going on around the world of sports, because I do updates during the Trailblazers broadcast. And then the big thing that I'm doing is keeping a running tally of the game. Different runs that have taken place, different key moments of the game. I'm keeping a tab of everything that's gone on so I can utilize that for my halftime wrap and my postgame wrap, and then also for a recap of the game during the course of the next broadcast. And so I'm really focused on that stuff. Now, the Blazers got down by 15 points early in the fourth quarter. I think the score was 106-91. And it looked like the game was about to be a little bit out of reach. Now, I was monitoring the scores of two other games because they had impact on the play-in race in the Western Conference. Sacramento was playing a game in Charlotte, and the Phoenix Suns were playing a game in Boston. Both those teams were ahead of Portland in the standings. And I saw the score go final because the Kings and Hornets tipped off at 4 o'clock. The Kings won the game, and with that win, it became a lot more clear that reaching the play-in was going to be very difficult for Portland. It was going to require basically perfection for them to be able to get over the hump. So, anyways, the Blazers are down by 15, and it's 106-91. And what happened is the Blazers, they went on a run, and they put together a sweet run, 12-2. So they went on a 10-point run, and they cut the deficit to 5 points at I think it was like 108-103. And there was a timeout taken by the Bulls. There's 3 minutes on the clock, and I'm busy trying to put together the run, and I'm typing all this stuff, and I'm paying attention to all these other things that are going on. So after the timeout, both teams take the floor. The Blazers have the ball, so they come down, and Delano Banton sinks a three with just under 3 minutes remaining in the game, and all of a sudden it's a 15-2 run, and the Blazers suddenly are down by 2 points with a great chance to win the game. Well, there was probably about 30 to 45 more seconds of action, and I'm looking at the floor, and I'm like, wait a second, where's Denny Avdia? And where's Shaden Sharp? Denny Avdia had a monster game last night. He scored a game high, pulled down double-digit rebounds, I think 37 points, 11 rebounds. He was awesome like he has been over the last couple of months. And Shaden Sharp didn't shoot the ball as well against Chicago, but he was in attack mode, and those two guys, like they've done for the majority of the road trip, have been carrying the offense. And so all of a sudden I realized that, the Blazers did not have Avdia or Sharp on the floor. And keep in mind, they went into the game knowing there was going to be no Ant forearm contusion. Tamani Kamara was out with a left ankle injury, and no Scoot Henderson, who's in the concussion protocol. So they had a bunch of role players on the floor and guys from the bench who have, barely played on the season. And so it took me a moment to process this, and so I texted a couple of people, and then all of a sudden I realized what was going on, or at least what I think was going on. So the Trailblazers right now, if you go to tankathon.com, and you look at the lottery standings right now, the Trailblazers sit in ninth. And they are just a game and a half behind the Spurs, who are in eighth. And right behind the Trailblazers are the Phoenix Suns, who sit in 10th. And they're 1.5 games, in front or behind the Trailblazers, depending on how you want to look at it. Well, if you look at the lottery standings right now, if the Blazers remain in the ninth spot, they will have a 4.5% chance to land the number one pick in the lottery and a 20.3% chance to get into the top four, which would be great because if the Blazers jump up in the lottery to the top four, they've got a chance to grab another key player to add to this tremendous young group of players that they've already got. Well, if they get to eighth and they play the Spurs tomorrow, so it's going to be very interesting to see how both teams handle that game. The Blazers would then, if they were to somehow move up to the eighth spot and replace San Antonio, they would suddenly have a 6% chance at the number one pick and a 26.3% chance to jump into the top four. So if I had to make my best educated guess on what went down yesterday, when the Kings game went final and they had beaten the Hornets, it became increasingly clear that the play-in was pretty much just a long shot, a dream. And so the Blazers made a decision in that moment to make sure that they did what was necessary to not win the game against Chicago. Because at least if you know you're not going to be in the play-in, you can secure your spot in the ninth hole and put yourself in a position and secure your position in the lottery. So I think that's exactly what happened. And the good news is, the Blazers, Joe Cronin did exactly what he said he was going to do after the trade deadline. He said he was going to honor the guys for the way that they had competed and the way they had played and the games that they had won to put themselves in a position to make a push for the play-in, and they did that. And once it became clear that the play-in was out of reach, they shifted focus back to lottery position with now 4 games to go in the season. And I'll tell you what, you may not think much about it, but I would much rather have a 20.3% chance to jump into the top 4 and a 4.5% chance at number 1 than I would falling back to 10th, where you have a 2.2% chance and a 10.3% chance. So I kind of understand what the Trailblazers are doing, but that's basically what went down yesterday. The Blazers, they had a 15-2 run, but it became clear that with the Kings win that the play-in was going to be out of reach, and so the Blazers shifted focus and focused on their position. And with that loss to Chicago, they're pretty secure in the ninth spot. And keep in mind, it's going to be important for Portland to get as good of a pick as they possibly can in the upcoming draft because they need to, add another big-time player. They've got 5 guys that we know can play: Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Denny Avdia, and Tamani Kamara. And if you can grab another, sweet player in the draft to add to that mix, now you're cooking with some gasoline, which is great. So what's going to be interesting tomorrow with the Spurs and Trailblazers sitting there at 8 and 9 in the lottery position, who's going to play tomorrow? Anthony Simons has got the forearm contusion. Scoot is still in concussion protocol. Tamani Kamara's got the left ankle. And Denny Avdia has been piling up a ton of minutes over the last couple of weeks. So who's going to play? I don't know the answer to that. But I think last night the Blazers kind of showed what direction they're going to take now with just a few games remaining. But I'm cool with it. And honestly, it was a great season because the young players got to develop. They had a chance to make a run. Joe Cronin gave them his word that he would let them compete and make a push, and he did that. But with the Kings win last night, it became clear that the play-in was basically impossible, so you shift focus. I think that's good business. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Coming up next, Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager at Spirit Mountain Casino, will join me, and we'll break down the Final Four here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, we're live here at your Northwest Premier Entertainment Destination, your place to bet on college sports, Spirit Mountain Casino, for Final Four action coming up at 3:09 on CBS, and then the second game with Duke and Houston will tip off at 5:49. And joining me once again is my good friend, the manager of the sportsbook here at Spirit Mountain Casino, Justin Ballinger. Well, thanks again for having me down, and thanks for coming back on the show. I love talking with you, buddy.
Same here. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, we'll get to the Final Four here in just a moment. We were just talking about something interesting. I love golf a lot, and it sounds like my favorite golfer, and it's so amazing how this happened, but Bryson DeChambeau is like my new favorite. And what happened over the last couple of years is that I started watching his YouTube channel, and this is after thinking that he was kind of a douche for the way he handled himself on the course and some of the spats he would get into. I thought he was a weirdo. But after watching his YouTube channel and seeing him interact with all these different people, I've grown to really like him. And I love his game, and I love the way he approaches the game with the science, and he's always looking for data to try and help himself out. And so I've become a big fan. And you said he's 20-1 to win the Masters right now.
20-1, yeah, great value. I mean, what, two-time major champ now?
Yeah, can you host the show while I go place a bet on Bryson?
Yeah, right.
No, but I think that's pretty good value there for a guy like Bryson, who's so long and if he's his short game is really good. So if he's good off the tee, he's got a chance to compete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for him, it's always, is he hitting the fairways or not? And if he is, he can win it for sure.
How do people normally like to bet a major tournament? Do they just find a guy that they really like or guys that they like and they pick one guy? Or how do people normally bet a golf major?
They usually sprinkle it. A couple long shots, a couple favorites in there. You might walk away with 7-8 different golfers going into it, but everyone has their own preference. We have guys who come in and they have their heart set on one individual, and they'll put a bigger bet down on that guy. And then we have the other guys who, they might take 20 or 30 just really long shots, $5 a pop, and hope they get lucky.
Well, one guy that I know is getting a lot of attention because he's got game and he's shown well in majors of the past, this youngster, I think it's Ludwig Oberg.
Yep, Ober.
Oh, Ober, that's right. How is Ober? What are his odds right now? Do you know off the top of your head?
He's a little low. He's about 16-1. I think he's, you got your Rory, Rahm, Scheffler, kind of big three, and then Aubert's right in that group behind it. And, he's shown flashes. He's looks extremely dangerous. He's going to win someday. Is it this year, though?
Now, if you don't want to bet a guy to win the tournament, can you bet like top 10 finish, or what are some different options you have with a major tournament?
For right now, we just have the outright. As it gets closer, starting Monday or so, there should be more things added in. We'll have daily matchups.
Nice.
Aubert versus Scheffler for just the Thursday, just the Friday, and then there's also tournament long matchups.
Oh, so you can go player against player for that particular day of the tournament.
Exactly. So I don't know, maybe you have a hunch that Tommy Fleetwood's good on Fridays, so you might look and.
That's actually a genius idea. That I think that I've never thought of it that way. But if you're watching a major, and you tune in on like a Thursday or a Friday, and you're watching, let's say, a matchup that you wagered on, and you've got them in the same pairing, that would be a fun watch on TV to see those two guys going back and forth.
Yeah, I've actually done that a few times, and they have so many alternate feeds on these bigger tournaments where a lot of the times you can watch every single shot, from a matchup bet.
I do think the website and the app, the Masters app, is one of the most genius apps of all time because I can pull it up and I can literally follow Bryson or whatever golfer I'm interested in. Like I love Fred Couples too, so sometimes I'll just pull up Fred and watch him like in the first couple of days, and I love doing that.
Yeah, no, the app's fantastic that they have nowadays.
Of the four golf majors, the Masters, the Open Championship, the U.S. Open, and the PGA, is the Masters the most heavily wagered, or is it something else?
It's easily the most heavily wagered. I don't know if, it's the tradition, if it's the first one of the year, probably a combination of everything. But, it feels to me, too, like the Masters has always been like the when you think of golf, that's kind of where your head goes first, at least in America,
I agree. Is Scotty the favorite right now?
Scotty's the favorite.
Of course.
With Rory pretty close right behind him, yeah.
All right, that's great. Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager at Spirit Mountain Casino here. All right, the Final Four that we've been building up for kicks off today at 3:09, the first matchup. And again, this is 4 number 1 seeds, first time since 2008. This first game here, I'm looking at your sheet, Florida and Auburn. Right now, the Gators are a 2.5-point favorite with the total set at 159.5. Are those numbers still current?
Those numbers are current. And actually, that spread hasn't moved one time this entire week.
Wow.
Which think is a little strange, considering like Janai Broom's injury question marks there and, different aspects. But, yeah, that line has stayed straight the whole week. What has moved in that game, though, is the total. It opened at 163.5, so we're down 4 points already to 159.5. And, I don't know if that's just, people thinking it's, the intensity of the moment type thing, where things kind of just slow down, or, these teams have played each other a couple times this year already. Maybe they're familiar with each other and they know how to get some stops. All
right, this game's interesting to me because Florida's one of those teams where they can score in bunches, and if you don't look out, they'll hit you with an 18-2 run or an 18-4 run to win a game. They're explosive. And then Auburn, which really from day one up until now has been the best team in the country, they had that lull at the end of the season where they were struggling, especially on defense, but they've really tightened things back up into the tournament. They've been protecting the rim well. They can get after you defensively. So they look like they've turned things around after that late season swoon. So, I mean, how do you see this matchup between two teams that are very familiar with one another?
Right. No, it is a tough one. That's my question. Are we going to get, the Auburn that we've been seeing in these second halves of the tournament games, or are we going to get the Auburn we saw, late February, early March? And I think, for me just personally, I'm almost more fixated on the Auburn side of it because I think those kind of aspects there, that might determine the game.
What about the wagering? Is it pretty much even across the board, or where's the money going on that one here at Spear Mountain?
A little higher on Florida, but again, we're still seeing some of those Florida Duke parlays, the favorite parlays on the money line. So,
do you have any of those two teams, Florida, Auburn, in your bracket pool, your personal pool?
My personal pool, I have Houston playing Auburn in the final.
Okay,
so,
Houston playing Auburn.
Yeah,
interesting. All right, so it's pretty evenly matched, and the money is pretty much even as well. Now, this second game, Duke and Houston you're real familiar with because they played Gonzaga earlier in the tournament, and you and I are both blown away by their defense, their intensity, their physicality. Duke right now is a 4.5-point favorite. Total set at 136.5, but you said the interesting part is that Duke went up to a 5.5-point favorite, but it's come back down to 4.5. What's going on there?
Yeah, exactly. And it's done that 2 or 3 times this week where they've bounced from 4.5 up to 5.5, then back down. So, when the line came out, it was obviously a lot bigger than the Florida Auburn game, being 5.5. But I think it says it's pretty evenly betting, and we're not really sure what's going to happen in this one. For us personally here at Spirit Mountain, we're cheering for Houston. We are a little higher on Duke on this one, and then as I kind of touched on with you as well, for the futures for the entire tournament, the winner there, we're starting to get a little bit high on Duke as well. So if Houston wants to take care of business, that wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world.
Now, if you wanted to bet a team to win the Final Four, right now you've got Duke as the odds-on favorite to win the tournament at minus 115, Houston plus 450. Auburn plus 575 and Florida at plus 310. Now, the number here for Duke at minus 115, how does that number compare to what it was before the tournament began?
Yeah, so they were about 3.5 to 1 at the end of that ACC tournament when, the Cooper Flagg injury kind of happened.
So you could get them at good value when you weren't sure about his status.
Yeah, exactly. And then, they beat they beat North Carolina and then they beat Louisville both back-to-back without him. And so they opened the tournament at about 2 to 1, which is really crazy to see, especially in a tournament that we thought was going to be extremely wide open. So maybe the odds makers did know something there, keeping them so low.
Interesting. So Duke, of all the teams that have been wagered here at Spirit Mountain to win the tournament, Duke, you've taken more bets on Duke than anyone else.
Of the remaining 4,
Of the remaining 4. Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, so the Blue Devils at minus 115 right now to win the tournament. Well, I mean, that makes sense to me. I actually think Houston, just my read on it, great defensive team. They're shooting the ball much better. That's been the big difference with their team this year. They've got a very good coach. I think you're getting pretty good value there at 4.5 or 5.5, depending on where you got the number with Houston because of their defensive capabilities. Duke's the best offensive team in the tournament right now, and the total's at 136.5. That tells you what the odds makers know about the Cougs.
Exactly, 136.5. I mean, again, we touched on this too, and Duke hasn't seen a defense like this at least in quite some time. They had the big high-scoring game against Alabama, who's not known for defense. The same story with Arizona, who's not necessarily known for defense. And so, when you have to change styles so much, you never really fully know what to expect in those kind of situations. So I think Houston, they could give them a run for their money today.
Now, do you think Duke's got more wagers to win the tournament or the Final Four because they're Duke and there are a lot of Blue Devil fans, or is that because they're Duke and everyone knows him, plus the Cooper Flag effect, where people, they like him, they want to see him do well, and they think he's going to carry him to a championship?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. And, as we've talked about many times now on the show, it's one of those Duke teams where you can't hate them. It's hard. It's a hard team to hate. The kids are likable.
Even their coach John Shire's likable.
Yeah, I know. It's almost annoying. It's like
I want to hate you, man.
Yes, exactly. Come on.
I know. Well, that's interesting. Now with the lines when they opened up, I don't know what you were expecting, but Duke at 4.5 favorite over Houston. Did that seem about right to you? Is that what you're anticipating?
Yeah, I thought it might be like 3.5, a little lower, but since the lines have come out, as we've touched on here, Duke has been really. They've been the most bet team since these lines have come out, and I think the media is high on Duke at this point. The brand name is obviously huge for Duke, and then the likability of this Duke team. I think all those factors combined are a big reason why they're being bet more than the other three right now.
Okay, that makes sense. And then Florida Auburn. So how many? People love doing the parlays on this too. So what's a common parlay for the Final Four? Is it you pick a couple of teams and a couple of totals, or how do people normally do the parlays for the Final Four?
Well, we're still seeing the favorite money lines is the most common parlay, and then you'll always see favorite in the overs. That's kind of the go-to
favorite and overs
if you're just betting on one particular game. So we are cheering for the unders a little bit as mentioned, and see what happens.
Are you still going to have the first to 15 for the two semifinal games? Because I like that bet. First team to hit 15.
Yep, still have the first to 15. Still have the halftime wagering. Different things you can get in.
Yeah, second, and you have. Do you have live in-game betting for these games as well? Or just a halftime?
We'll have betting available at halftime for the second half there.
Okay, good. All right, that's great, man. Yeah, this is good. We were talking about this, but for me, I like March Madness, and I do like to see occasional upsets, but I'll tell you what, when we get to this stage in the Final Four, I like having the 4 number 1 seeds in, because there's no doubt in my mind that Houston, Duke, Florida, and Auburn, from start of the season up until now, are the 4 best teams in college basketball, and now we're going to get a chance to see all 4 of those teams go head-to-head.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's pretty indisputable, I think, that those are the 4 best teams, and if Cooper Flag's not player of the year, you have Broom, who's still in it. If he's not, the Walter Clayton of Florida. The guards on Houston, all 3 of them are fantastic, and so it's exciting. Like you said, the coaches as well. It's a heavyweight Final Four for sure.
We're talking with Justin Ballinger. He's the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. So we get ready for the Final Four. First game with Florida and Auburn going to tip off coming up at 3:09. I wanted to ask you a question about the NBA. I'm curious what you're noticing with betting trends now, because the 3 best teams by far the entire season have been Cleveland, Boston in the Eastern Conference, and Oklahoma City, who's running away with the West. They're 13 and a half games in front of Houston in the Western Conference. But what I'm curious about is, have you noticed people jumping on the Lakers and the Warriors bandwagon after the trades were made for Luka now in L.A. with LeBron and Jimmy Butler joining Steph Curry with the Warriors? Have you noticed people maybe putting future bets on those 2 teams?
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. The Lakers and Warriors. And, I mean, it's kind of like the Duke thing. You have the brand already there and established. You already have LeBron and Steph, and, now they get their sidekicks, thrown in with them. And, here being on the West Coast, just more of a kind of a local-ish vibe, on those 2. So, yeah, we've seen a lot of Lakers and Warriors come in since the trade deadline.
Which games do you think are harder to handicap? Tournament games with March Madness or NBA playoff games?
I think the NBA playoff games are a little harder because there's so much volatility. If a team is, say, they're up 2-0 in the series and it's game 3, and the game's getting away from them a little bit in the third or fourth quarter, you might see them just call it off. We're up 2-0 in the series, pull out all the starters, and then that really throws a wrench into it. Whereas, these college games, these kids have put so much into it. It's so many of their last years with these teams and programs. And, it seems like starters, and they're always just fighting till the very end of the game. And I think it's more predictable in that sense. Not that anything about gambling is predictable, but I think, there's just a lot more volatility and movement in the NBA games at certain times.
Yeah, and I wonder, too, with the one and done, where if you lose, you go home. Like, we see these coaches, like, they'll continue to coach right up until the very end. That's why, for me, like, wagering on college basketball can be frustrating because these teams will score, they'll continue to foul, they'll call timeouts, and then the college players are not the most reliable free throw shooters at all times, right?
Right. That's what makes it a lot more interesting. When Steph Curry's shooting a free throw and they're up by 1 with 8 seconds left, he's not going to miss it, you know. Whereas in college, they might miss 4 straight in that situation. You just never know.
Oh, that's so crazy. That's great. So, I figured that with Luka now in L.A. and Jimmy Butler in Golden State. But who are the what NBA teams have you taken the most action on for futures to win the championship? Is it Boston and Oklahoma City? Is it somebody else? What are you getting right now?
Yeah, so Boston and OKC for the whole season, they've been consistently hit the most. Preseason, though, we had a lot of Knicks action. When they made the they made the trade they get.
Karl Anthony Towns.
Yes, the cat trade. And after that,
which has turned out really good for them, too.
Yeah, and he's kind of, not that his career was going poorly, but it's almost like he's resurrected himself into this full-on superstar, now at this point.
But you can probably get pretty good value on a team like the Knicks, who are, third behind Cleveland and Boston, the two prohibitive favorites in the conference. But New York's a good basketball team. They play good defense. They've got star power. Like you get good value with a team like New York if they're able to somehow navigate the East and pull off the upset and get to the finals.
Right. And that's the other thing. Being in the East is you might – when you're in the West, you might have to go through, 3 consecutive Game 7s against just grueling matchups. In the East, obviously Boston is potentially the best team in the NBA, and Cleveland's no slouch by any means. But, if you match up with someone like the Detroit Pistons or, Pacers in the first round, that seems like a little easier path, on paper.
All right, I want you to take your sportsbook manager hat off for just a moment. If you were, going to sit down today and you're looking at these two games, Houston and Duke, with the Blue Devils favored by 4.5, Florida a 2.5-point favorite over Auburn. Like what wager looks the best to you that you would jump on? Would it be Houston plus the 4.5?
Man, I've been torn. I've been going back and forth because Houston has, at times they have looked so well, but the Gonzaga game and the Purdue game both, they had comfortable, semi-comfortable leads late in the game, and they really played kind of poorly to finish those out. And, that tells me if they're down 2 points against Duke, late, are they going to keep it close, or are we going to see that kind of form come back and, they kind of go cold and maybe lose by 7 or 8 there?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I said, my bracket has Houston, but part of me is, and maybe I'm just hedging in my head a little bit here when I'm saying this, but I don't know. I kind of like Duke a little bit on the spread there.
Hey, what's your advice when it comes to buying the half-point hook? Is it worth it, or should you avoid the extra charge?
For me, it completely depends on the number, the sport, the situation. For example, like I personally would never recommend buying a half point on like an NBA total.
Yeah.
Going from 238.5 down to 238. The odds of that are so astronomically small compared to the NFL, where you have a 3.5 point underdog or a 3.5 point favorite.
Yes.
And then you buy it down to 3, and it's like that's
or 7.5 points.
7.5, exactly.
Because so many games end in a 3 or 7 point difference.
3-7. You'll do it to get to 10 as well, here and there. But they all cost a different amount too. Some of them are 5-10 cents to buy the half point. Sometimes though you're spending 25-30 cents, and then when it's that expensive on a half point, really got to think about is it worth it? What are the odds that I'm going to get hooked on this, and is that worth it to the price to get off that number?
What are your take on teasers?
Teasers are kind of in the same boat for me. It has to be So I personally, I do not do teasers on basketball.
Yeah.
I only tease football games, but it has to be, again, key numbers and right situations. You know, like a 9.5 point favorite in NFL, if you can get them down to 2.5 without having to pay, you know, that extra surcharge or anything, that might be one I would consider. But, you know, taking a 14.5 point favorite down to just 7.5, you know, that might not necessarily be.
Yeah, because you're not getting the value there in the number change.
Right. And, you know, they win by a field goal and you still end up, or a touchdown, and you still end up losing. So.
How do teasers work in the NBA? Like, what's the most you can tease down a number in the NBA?
So for us here at Spirit Mountain, we have 4, 4.5, and 5 point teasers. But again, for just, you know, the craziness at the end of
with a minimum of 2
games.
games.
Minimum of 2 games. Yep, and you can combine spreads, you can combine totals, you can intermingle them both. Up to you, but yeah, 4, 4.5, and 5 points are the 3 we got.
What's the biggest? What's the maximum of games you can put on a teaser here at Spirit Mountain?
So same as parlay, you can go all the way up to 15
on a teaser.
On a teaser, yeah.
Now, do you do 4-team special teasers that go up to 13 points, or do you just keep it right at the 6-point total?
Currently, we don't have those available. You know, I've seen them before. Actually, when I was in Vegas myself, I used to play here and there the football, the 3-team 10-point teaser.
And were you surprised at how often you couldn't hit the games, even when you had 10 points in your favor?
It's crazy. And then when you do hit the games, you didn't need the 10 points.
I know.
And so it's like.
Well, that's why I've always talked. Like I've talked to Mr. Vaccaro down at the South Point before, and he's like, if you, with the teaser, he goes, usually if you pick the team that you think is going to win the game, they're usually going to cover the spread. So he was trying to tell me that the teaser is not the best idea in all situations like you were just talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, same with parlays. You know, you see the advantage on paper in parlays. You know, it's the big payouts. In teasers, it's like, how can that point spread lose? You know, but you know they're. You know, a little watered down for a reason, and, you know, sports books love taking action on teasers and parlays, and there's a reason for that.
That's awesome. All right, Justin Ballinger now coming up on Monday, so we're here for the 2 games today. But the great thing is about Monday, we've got the championship game, and we'll see who the matchup's going to be later on tonight. But also on Monday for the title game, you can come down here to Spirit Mountain Casino, hang out, grab a bite over at 10 Barrel Brewing, watch the championship game, but we're also going to have March Mania drawings as well. So we're going to have multiple things going on at the same time. That you can enjoy, and then the following weekend we got Masters action.
Yeah,
so big stuff here at Spirit Mountain.
March Madness is winding down, but we're not, you know.
Well, Justin, I appreciate you having me. It's great to be here, and I encourage everyone to get down, and this is the place to be, your place to bet on college sports. Anything else to get out to the masses before I let you go?
Come on down and swing some golf clubs. Top Golf Swing Suite now opened, right by the sports book. You got TVs in each suite. You can see the sports book from the suite. So come on down.
It's a great way to kill time too. Like if you get your bets in, you can go in the Top Golf Swing Suite and play around a golf and watch your games and keep up on your wagers at the same time. So you can multitask.
Food and drinks served right to you as well. So. Can't beat it.
All right, Justin Ballinger, Sportsbook Manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. We'll come back and keep things rolling here. RipCity Drive special Saturday edition from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Big thanks to Justin Ballinger. All right, big thanks to Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino, for joining us and giving us the breakdown. Well, I tell you what, I kind of like Bryson DeChambeau, 20-1 odds to win the Masters. I understand that Scotty Scheffler, Oberg, and, of course, Rory McIlroy are the favorites, but particularly Rory and Scotty. But, man, Bryson DeChambeau has got mad game. But can he manage that course and be able to keep himself in a position in play off the tee? But, man, he hits the ball a mile. So hanging out here at Spirit Mountain Casino today, getting ready for the Final Four. Again, if you're coming down, the first tip-off is going to be at 3:09. It's Florida and Auburn. And Florida right now is a 2.5-point favorite. That line has remained the same throughout the course of the week, total at 159.5. And right now, the second game, which is scheduled to tip off at 5:49, Houston and Duke, the Blue Devils, a 4.5-point favorite. As Justin mentioned, the line went up to 5.5, but came back down to 4.5. The total at 136.5, and that's because Houston is a defensive-minded, physical basketball team that they kind of lure you into their style of play. They want to slow it down. They want to muck things up, and they really want to, just get you into their style. And that's what Duke's got to try to avoid. Can they find a way to deal with the pressure, limit their turnovers, and be able to get their offense going the way that they have throughout the course of the tournament? Duke is the best offensive team in the Final Four, and both games today and the championship game on Monday being played at the Alamo Dome down in San Antonio. So that's what's going on here. I'm hanging out up until 4 o'clock, and I'll be back down here on Monday for the title game, which I think is going to tip off, I think, around 6 or just shortly after 6 o'clock. And I'll be hosting the March Mania drawing, so come down and join me. Spirit Mountain Casino, I'll be here until 4 today on air, and then we'll be down here for the RipCity Drive on Monday. And then we're going to shift our focus to the final week of the Trailblazers regular season, which they've got the game tomorrow. It's a matinee tip, 3 o'clock at Moda Center against the San Antonio Spurs. They're Wednesday night in Utah against the Jazz. That game will tip off at 6. Friday, they host the Golden State Warriors with Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry. That's a 7 o'clock tip. And the season concludes next Sunday on April 13th, a 12:30 tip at home against the Los Angeles Lakers. So we'll see how things shake out. And we'll see what the Lakers have to play for. Last time they were in town, no Luka. So can we at least get a chance to see a little bit of Luka? But I'm telling you, it's more and more clear to me, if you look at the Western Conference right now, Oklahoma City is 13.5 games in front of Houston. They're a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, and they don't have any weaknesses. And they've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's probably going to win the MVP. And they've won 9 of the last 10 ball games. So they're playing their best basketball at the right time of the year. And they're nearly unbeatable at home, 34-5 in their own crib on the season. I just think the more I've looked at these teams, I understand why we don't buy into the Thunder the way that we should when they've got 64 wins on the year, for crying out loud. And it's because they haven't done it before. Meaning they haven't won a championship. They haven't won the Western Conference with this group. And so we don't buy into it. And I was thinking back, and I started watching the NBA in the 80s and paying attention to the finals, and it was the same way. Like the Lakers and Celtics had proven themselves. They had gone through the battles. They found a way to get over throughout their conferences, and they were able to win championships. And then what you saw after that were the teams who had to learn how to win in the postseason before they eventually got over the hump. So for Boston, they were being challenged by the Detroit Pistons, and it took the Pistons multiple years to finally solve the Boston Celtics in the postseason. And then they got to their first NBA final, and they lost in 7 games to the Lakers. And then after the Pistons had won back-to-back championships, it was Chicago and Michael Jordan who had been knocked out multiple times by the Celtics, and they had been knocked out in back-to-back years by the Pistons. And finally, in that third opportunity, the Bulls figured out how to solve the bad boys and their defense and get to the championship round. And they got over on the Lakers in their first of many titles. So it's that process, right? And we've seen that play out and develop over the course of time in the Western Conference. And the same thing with the Lakers. They were being challenged by the Houston Rockets back in the day, who had to solve and figure out a way to get over on the Lakers. And then after that, it was the Phoenix Suns and then the Portland Trailblazers. So that's kind of the process, and that's the way it plays out. And so maybe that's why we don't look at the Thunder the way we would other teams. And I guess it was similar to Boston last year. You know, they had to finally figure out how to get over and get the job done and win the title. They did that, and now I look at Boston, and I'm like, they're absolutely going to win the East. They've been there. They've done that. They know how to do it. They've got the experience. But I just think Oklahoma City is the best team. And it would surprise me if any of these other teams were able to rise up and get the job done. What's interesting is the Houston Rockets and their young squad, 51 wins on the season. They are second best in the West in terms of records, and they're 13 and a half games behind the Thunder. The Lakers right now sit in the third spot, followed by Denver, Golden State, and Minnesota. And the Timberwolves have been surging of late. They've won 4 straight. The Warriors have won 5 straight. But both those teams are playing very good basketball right now. But if I look at any team in the West, I think the best chance or the team with the best opportunity to take out Oklahoma City would probably be the Warriors, because they can switch and defend, and they've got star power with Butler and Curry, and Steph Curry can be a great equalizer. I almost went Elmer Fudd there. Oh, he's a great equalizer. Oh, I thought I saw a pooty cat. Come on, Chad, get your tongue together. But that's how I see it. I think the Warriors probably have the best chance with their ability to switch and defend, but even they don't have the firepower or the depth of talent that Oklahoma City does. Now, in terms of matchups, I think Boston's going to cruise to the Eastern Conference. I like Cleveland's story. I like the season that they've had. They're going to have the number 1 seed, but the Celtics, they're so good, and they have so many different guys who can make shots and hit the 3 ball, and they've got star power with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they've got a great defensive unit. I just don't think Cleveland will have enough to get over in a 7-game series. But if you want to talk about matchups, you know, I know everyone would like to see the star power of maybe the Lakers or the Warriors get to the NBA Finals in the West, but no one matches up better with Boston than Oklahoma City because they've got the talent to switch at all 5 positions. And you need that type of mobility when you're playing Boston and their ability to spread the floor and shoot the 3 ball. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Brian Bino, Fox Sports Radio, going to join me coming up at around 3:20 today. But I appreciate your time. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. I'm live here at your Northwest Premier Entertainment Destination, Spirit Mountain Casino, in the sports book. This is your place to bet on college sports, and we got the Final Four kicking off coming up at 3:09, and both games will tip off on CBS. I did not ask my man Michael Shacker to play this song, but Don't Disturb This Groove by The System is one of my favorite songs of all time. And it always reminds me of this time of year. I think the first time I heard this song, it was right around March or April with the tournament going on in the Final Four. And so this song always reminds me of the tournament, but also the better weather, which is right around the corner, with springtime, longer days, blue skies, sunshine, flowers are in bloom. This is one heck of a slow jam. Don't disturb this groove. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's a great song. And speaking of golf, I think I mentioned this before, but I'm in the middle of some type of crazy work schedule. And I did not plan it like this, but my last day off from any work was on March 1st. And my next day off is going to be next Saturday, which is April 12th, the day before the end of the Trailblazer season. With work, like with radio, and when you do different things, what happens is, like, Shacker does the same thing. Like, he works in radio, works for iHeart, and works for 620. But, what happens is you get opportunities to do all sorts of other, side work. So Shacker does radio for Oregon State and handles many of their broadcasts, and he also handles the radio for all the visiting radio teams that come into Moda Center, during the course of the NBA season. Well, it's no different for me. I have my hosting duties, for iHeart with the RipCity Drive. And then I do work for the Trailblazers during the season as their studio host. And so I end up covering every single game, which if you take preseason and regular season, that comes out to about 84 or 85 games. And then I do work down here at Spirit Mountain Casino, and I'm like their Bob Barker, so I host all of their events. And the way that the last couple of months played out, it's just that I've had something going on, whether it be show during the week, Blazer game on the weekends, or Spirit Mountain activities, where it's all spread out over the course of like 41 straight days. And so I'm nearing the end of that, but the best part is golf season is just right around the corner. And I don't know how many of you have implemented this into your routine, but one of the biggest blessings for me and one of the biggest game changers has been the addition of being able to work and practice around the clock throughout the year, indoors at Golf Tech. And we've seen a lot of these different type of businesses pop up where you can have these simulators. Like Spirit Mountain Casino's got the Top Golf Swing Suite. There's a Top Golf in Hillsboro. We're seeing these different places pop up around town, but I can vouch for it because I use the technology at Golf Tech. When you go indoors, nothing's ever going to be the same as being outdoors with the conditions and the natural surface and all of that. But having the ability to go inside when it's raining sideways and cold outside with wind and being able to practice, multiple times a week indoors is a game changer, because I don't want to go outside when it's 32 degrees and raining and practice. I'd rather be indoors where I can be warm in my shorts and just focus on my game. But the technology now with these simulators, like I'm telling you, if you haven't used it and you think it might be hokey, it's very legit. And so I'm in this bay at Golf Tech, and I'm hitting into this big, like, projection screen that's in front of me. So you're hitting into a projection screen that when you're looking at, you're either looking at the virtual driving range or you're actually looking at a golf course. And the technology, they've added some different things to the software at the beginning of the year. So what you can do now is you can pull up just about any golf course in the world, and you can pull up any hole, and this is in the practice settings, where you can go to a certain hole and you pull up a hole. Like, let's say I want to go to Portland Golf Club and pull up hole number 14. You can pull up the hole and you can pick anywhere on the fairway or off the fairway on that hole from any yardage distance from the pin and practice shots. And so I've stopped using the virtual driving range, and I've started going to specific holes and just practicing different shots. The majority of the time this offseason I've been working on, 60-degree shots from, 50, 55, 62, 65 yards out. And you can set the conditions on the simulator to match the weather conditions outside. You can increase the wind. You can increase the moisture. You can do all these different things to simulate the conditions that you would have outside and continue to work on your shots. And so that way, and I've been doing this now for a few years, but that way when the golf season hits and you walk out to tee off for the first time at whatever course you like to play, then the club's not a foreign object in your hand. You've been working on your swing, you're staying up to speed, and that's it. And so it's been a big game changer. So if you're a little hesitant about those type of activities, I encourage you to get your butt indoors and start utilizing the simulator, which is going to be pretty cool. And one thing that's pretty sweet, next week, Alex Brink is going to join me in studio, and I believe this is going to be on Tuesday, or is it Thursday? I can't remember the day. But next week, Alex Brink's going to come in, and Brian Henniger, former PGA pro who's now working at the Golf Farm with Alex Brink as a part of E4 Sports. He's going to come in, and we're going to talk Masters, and we'll talk with Brian, who's teaching and instructing and working with people on their game. I just can't wait to get out on the course. The biggest adjustment for me once the golf season hits and I start playing all the time is just getting my body in condition to walking, basically a marathon every week. Because when you play 4 to 5 times in the week, I've got to adjust to getting less rest, getting up and getting my body used to, the constant swinging of the club, and you kind of got to get yourself in condition for that, and then the constant walking. But once I get through that, it takes about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Then it's just full go. And now all I need is cooperation with the weather. And I was checking the extended forecast. Last year we had some really great days in April and in May in terms of weather. All I need is dry. I don't need sun and warmth. I just need it to not be, pouring down rain outside. But basically what we're looking at right now on the extended forecast, a lot of rain in the near future. But once we get into, roughly about mid-April, so looks like around the 15th, that week of the 15th, Tuesday the 15th through Saturday the 19th, it looks like partly sunny and no rain with temperatures anywhere from 65 up to 72 degrees. That is what it's all about. This is pretty sweet. Now, my man Chris Burkhart is out right now doing a little shopping, and he sent a picture of an old Nintendo cartridge, which is pre-owned, that's for sale, and it's the original Contra game from Konami. Now, that is big time right there. Now, I think I told you about my man Tony and Boring. This happened, I don't know, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. I can't remember the exact time. But we were talking about Contra on air. And part of being a young boy in the age in which I grew up, the peak childhood for me was pulling an all-nighter on the Nintendo Entertainment System and trying to find a way to perfect Tecmo Bowl or Contra. Well, I got this package in the mail, and I opened it up, and it's like this Super Nintendo Entertainment System that's got all these preloaded games on it. And it's like a really tiny system that doesn't weigh hardly anything. But they've got the computer chip in there where you have all these games, and it's got every single Contra game in there. And so I played it nonstop for like 4 straight weeks until I got my rhythm back and I could finish Contra without dying. So thanks a lot, Tony. You took away multiple weeks from my life that I'll never get back, and it was totally worth it. But I love those type of vintage things. But that was really peak childhood. We used to do these like youth group events with the church when I was younger, where, of course, back in the 80s, it was all about the arcade. Have you ever done an all-nighter at an arcade where you walk into the arcade, and it's like the greatest thing ever, but the best part is they preload the games with all these credits, and we'd spend all night playing video games without having to pay a single dime because it was some type of youth event. Now, that to me was amazing. The first time I did an all-nighter in an arcade with all the games preloaded up with credits, I was like, whoa, you got to be kidding me. But I still haven't hit that. They have like that pop culture museum and pinball place with video games out in Hillsboro. I forgot the name of the place, but I haven't been there yet. And I've been talking to my buddy Luke that once the Blazer season ends, we can go out there and check it out. But from what I understand is you buy a wristband, and then you can roll in and play as many games as you want. And then you can actually bring food in, or you can leave and go eat something and then come back and continue. So let's see here. Pinball Museum, Hillsboro. I'm going to Rabbi Google right now. Let's see if I can find this place. Yeah, Next Level Pinball Shop and Museum. Yeah, that's the place right there. 620-plus games on free play. That's what I'm talking about. Where was that place when I was younger? Dang it. But, yeah, that's what it says here. There are over 650 pinball machines and arcade games on the floor, with over 615 of those games on free play with no quarters or cards needed. The additional 40 pieces that are not included on free play are items like claw machines, photo booth, and games that dispense collectible cards. For the most part, games that give items are not on free play, but all other games are included with your admission. 27,000 square feet for pop culture, with floor-to-ceiling lunchboxes, signed movie paraphernalia, toys, and collectibles. Even if you didn't play a single game on your visit, it takes several hours to walk through the museum and look at all the items on the wall. Okay, that's pretty awesome. My daughter went to it this week up in Seattle, but there's a pop culture museum that is right next to the Space Needle, and I have not been there, but she showed me a bunch of pictures, and it looks pretty awesome. And from my understanding, Paul Allen, I don't know if he's the one or if it's his foundation that built the museum, but I do know that Paul Allen contributed a bunch of stuff in the museum. And I have not been there, but Kaylee said it was pretty sweet. She showed me some cool stuff from Star Wars that was in there. There's different stuff from different movies. I think Terminator. I don't know. I'd like to check it out. But I like that Paul Allen, he was big into science and different technologies and stuff, but I think it's pretty neat that he supplied some stuff for that. But I haven't been to that museum. I haven't checked it out. So there you go. The one thing we will do here in a few minutes is we'll take a listen to Chauncey Billups. I want to get back into that scenario that we saw last night at the end of that game in Chicago, where it sure looked like the Blazers were trying to make sure they did not win the game. And I guess my question for you is, do you have a problem with that approach? Knowing that the play-in with the win by the Kings last night in Charlotte, that the play-in was going to be pretty much out of the question, do you have an issue with the Blazers choosing at that point, when they knew the play-in was no longer in play, to focus on making sure that they secure at least the 9th spot in the lottery? I don't have a problem with it at all, because they did exactly what the fans wanted. Fans wanted to see the team compete. Fans wanted to see the team have a chance to win games, and they got it. And they got a legitimate push for the play-in. And, to Joe Cronin's credit, he talked about it at the trade deadline, where he's like, hey, I'm going to honor the guys and allow them to compete based on the work they put in and the games that they've been able to win, because they had gone on that little hot streak before the trade deadline and All-Star break. And he honored that, and he let them continue to play and compete all the way down until the very end, when it became, apparent that they were not going to make it. And then at that point, they decided, okay, we got 4 games left. Let's secure our spot and make sure we give ourselves the best chance with what we have in front of us to land a good pick in the draft. I think it's the best of both worlds. We got to watch the young players develop. We now have plenty of data on those young guys, Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Tamani, and Denny. And moving forward, the front office knows what they've got, and they can make better decisions. And at the same time, you give yourself the best possible chance to jump up into the top 4. And that's really what it's all about for me. Yes, I want Cooper Flagg. Yes, that would be, an awesome act of God if the Blazers jump up to get the number 1 pick in the draft. That'd be the ultimate game changer. But at the very least, give yourself the best chance to jump into the top 4 and land one of those top picks in the draft. And right now, if we look at the current mock draft, I'm just taking a look at the one on Tankathon.com. Cooper Flagg is slotted to go number 1. Dylan Harper, the 6'6", combo guard out of Rutgers, slated to go number 2. And Ace Bailey, his teammate at Rutgers, 6'10", small forward, is slated to go number 3. And then the consensus number 4 is VJ Edgecombe, who is a freshman there at Baylor, who is a shooting guard standing at 6'5". So there you go. You jump into the top 4, even if you don't get Cooper Flagg, you're going to get access to a really good player. So when we come back here, I'm live at Spirit Mountain Casino, getting ready for the Final Four. I'm looking at the card here at Spirit Mountain right now. First game tips off at 3:09, Florida and Auburn. The Gators are a 2.5-point favorite. The total set at 159.5. And the second game tips off at 5:49. Duke is a 4.5-point favorite over Houston. Total set at 136.5. Now, if you want to bet one team to win the tournament as it sits right now before the games are played, Duke at -150 for a great defensive team. Auburn at +575 and Florida at +310. Summertime. All right. 503-248-0620. We'll hear from Chauncey Billups. You can kind of hear some of the frustration in his voice, and we'll do that next when we come back. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino getting ready for the Final Four. Your place to bet on college sports, your Northwest premier entertainment destination, a special Saturday edition of the RipCity Drive. And I forgot what year it was. This is probably like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I was in New Seasons, the one there in North Portland off of Interstate. I like going to New Seasons. They got, different types of nutrition bars. I like their deli area. My good friend Julia, the old lady who gives me facials, she's like my second mom. I met her many years ago, but she's like one of my best friends now. She's from Costa Rica, and she's a lovely lady. But she likes to go there because she likes to shop there, and she likes to eat and pick out things in the deli area, like a sandwich or whatever the case may be, a salad. And so we'll go over there to have lunch or whatever. Well, I heard that song that Shaka was just playing from Toto, I'll Supply the Love. But I had not heard the song before. It's one of those times where you're like, you come across a song, you're like, instantly you're like, man, that sounds good. And so I heard the song, and I was like, dude, I heard this song. I was talking to my buddy Steve, and Toto's like his favorite band. I'm like, hey, I was walking in the shopping market, and I heard this song, and I go, dude, it was Toto. And he's like, yeah, idiot, that's like their first big hit. I just didn't know. I had no idea. But yeah, Julia, my good friend Julia, who I've been going over to see at her house now for years, I first met her. I was working up at Health Experience Athletic Club at Tower Mall in Vancouver. And for those of you who know the area up there in the Heights, it was like the mall that never was. It was kind of a shopping mall, but it was kind of run down. Like, it never really materialized into anything. And I think the state took it over, and there's like state offices in there now. But it was right across the parking lot from the club that I worked at. Well, I went over there to talk to one of the owners of the club at the time, and they were owned by three brothers, Larry, Joe, and Nelson Mello. And they were over there talking to Julie, and I had heard of Julie or knew who she was. She owned a beauty shop over there where, you go in, she would give facials, or, like they have like the permanent makeup for women and stuff. She would do that, or work on, all these different things for ladies, because she's like an expert, and she's got this beautiful accent. And she really is like, I don't know, she won't tell me her exact age, but I think she's probably between 75 and 80, I think. I'm almost certain, but again, I'm not going to ask her age because she would get mad at me. And the great thing about Julia being from where she's at, she's very direct and will just say things that most people would find offensive, but because she's a beautiful older lady with a sweet accent, she gets away with being very direct. So I walk over there, and I think I was like 21 at the time, and I went up to say something to Nelson, and I said hi to Julia. And when I said hi, I just, I shook her hand, and then she you ever had someone they don't let go of your hand and they pull you in closer? She pulled me in closer, and she's like examining me with like an examining eye. Like, she's looking at my face, and in this accent, she's like, oh, she's like, your face looks terrible. She goes, you need to come see me. And I'd never had someone examine me and then say, your face looks terrible, you need to come see me. Like, that was the first that's ever happened in my life. And so I did. I went over to see her, and she gave me a facial and gave me some different pointers and stuff for my young and growing and developing body. And then after that, she sold the shop, but she gave me her phone number, and she goes, you can continue to come see me. And so she lives over in the old part of Vancouver. She's got a beautiful house that sits up above Vancouver Lake. Her husband, who I think was a psychiatrist, passed away years ago, and she's been widowed ever since. She never remarried. But I think that she has done quite well for herself. But she's got this beautiful home above Vancouver Lake, but in her basement is where she has her whole setup. So she's got the chair. It's like a dentist chair, but it's not. She uses it for facials. And so I started going over there and seeing her, every month or every 6 weeks. And then over time, we just become good friends. And I introduced her to my family, and now her and I will go and have lunch together, and we just do these different things. And so it's nice to have someone like that. She's kind of like my Nana, or she kind of replaced my Nana, but that's kind of how it went down. But I was with her when I heard the Toto song that I said, hey, Steve, I think this is a Toto song. He goes, yeah, you idiot. So there you go. That's the story about Julia. But she's wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and she's very and she's got a beautiful garden. I don't know how much she spends each month on her yard and her garden, but it's beautiful. She's got, she grows these different flowers in the back. She's got fig trees, and she lets me know when they're ripe because I love I love picking the figs out the tree and just eating them. They're so delicious. You just got to be careful because it's like a natural, well, how shall we say this? It will activate things inside of your body. So you got to be cautious not to overeat those. At the same time, she's got a plum tree in the front. So I go over there and get, fruit or different things, which is nice. And sometimes we'll sit down and have tea or whatever the case may be. So there you go. That's the story on Julia. Now I want to turn the attention back to the Trailblazers. So here was the situation last night. So the Blazers playing a game against Chicago. They're still in a push for the play-in race in the Western Conference. And we were scoreboard watching because the Kings were 2.5 games going into last night's action ahead of the Blazers for that 10th and final play-in spot. And so the Blazers needed the Kings to lose. And if they were to win and beat Charlotte, you knew it was going to be very difficult to reach the play-in. Well, the Kings game tipped off at 4 an hour before the Blazer game, so it ended before the Blazer game was over, and we knew that the Kings had won. Well, the Blazers got down by 15 early in the fourth quarter in that game last night in Chicago. And then all of a sudden the Blazers went on a torrid tear led by Denny Avdia and Delano Banton, and they went on a big run, 12-2, and they cut the deficit to 5 points with 3 minutes to play. And there was a timeout taken by Billy Donovan and the Bulls. And the Blazers came out of the timeout. Now, during the game, I'm busy doing multiple things inside of Studio C because I'm trying to keep a record of the game. I'm trying to write my recap for the next game, and I'm paying attention to what's going on around the NBA and around the world of sports because I do updates. And so the Blazers take the floor. It's their ball after the timeout. And they come right out of the timeout, and they hit a three, Delano Banton. And all of a sudden, it's a 2-point game with like 2:45 on the clock, and it's like, okay, they've got a chance. 15-2 run. Well, about 25 or 30 more seconds of game time went by, and I'm looking at the floor. I'm like, oh, why is Ryan Rupert out there? And then I notice, I'm like, okay, I see Banton. Well, where's Denny Avdia and where's Shaden Sharp? They weren't on the floor in a 2-point game. And then after texting a couple of people and then thinking about it for a moment, I was like, okay, I know what's going on here. My best guess as to what the Blazers were doing last night was making sure they did not win the game. When it got to the point where they knew the Kings had won and they knew their chances at the play-in were basically over, they turned their attention to making sure that they continue to secure their 9th spot in the lottery order. That's what I think was going down. It's the only thing that makes sense. When you go on a 15-2 run and you cut the deficit to 2 with 3 minutes to play, and all of a sudden you take Denny Avdia out of the game and put him on the bench when he's got 37 points and 11 rebounds, and you take out Shaden Sharp, your two best options, because Scoot, Ant, and Kamari are all out of the game, why else would you be taking them out? But you can hear some of the frustration in Chauncey Billups' voice after the game. Here he is following the Bulls' 118-113 victory over the Blazers.
It was tough. It was tough sled, especially in the last few minutes when we didn't have our playmakers in there at the time, the guys that kind of got us to that point. Denny, I thought, carried us for most of the night, and Shaden was good. Delano was pretty good. And it was just tough sledding. I mean, the young kid had a big shot in the corner over there, but we were doing a really good job defensively to get ourselves to that point. We just didn't have enough offense in there at the end to win the game.
What did you think about the way you guys were able to come back? It seemed like when they got up 15, that it seemed like it was, I think maybe they thought it was over, but you guys obviously didn't.
Yeah, we did. We just kept scrapping. I wanted us to keep kind of getting to the basket, drawing their defense in. They were doing a lot of swarming down there, and then we did a good job of kind of kicking the ball around. I thought our offensive rebounds really hurt them throughout the night. We didn't shoot it well anywhere, to be honest with you, but our offensive rebounds kept us in it.
How do you kind of come away from this trip then, Coach?
I thought it was a good trip. I really do. I thought it was a good trip for us. We played against some good teams on it. I thought we played well for the most part on it. Obviously getting banged up, getting hurt throughout the trip didn't help at all, But at the end of the day, I thought, it turned out to be a really good trip for us. We got some guys that are really playing well, man.
You mentioned the shooting percentage, Coach. Just I guess what I say about you got offensive rebounding is part of it. What does it say about your defense as well? You guys are able to stay in this game shooting, like I said, 26% from 3, 38% from the field.
Yeah, I mean, our defense, I thought our defense was really good. in the game. And again, it's the only reason why we are able to compete in games like this is when you play really hard defensively and you make it really, really tough for them. I mean, they had some dudes that had some huge offensive nights. You get 31 from Boots, 31 Kobe, and then Josh had a triple-double, so they had some really big numbers from some of those guys. However, we still right there, with a chance to win the game. So I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of our defense.
All right, there's Coach Billups. So you could hear the frustration. He said it was really tough when we didn't have our playmakers there at the end of the game, the ones who had gotten us to that point. So, as I mentioned, I think what the Blazers were doing, they made a decision once they knew that the plan was out of reach to secure their lottery position. Now, the question is, why would you do that? Well, it's pretty simple. Right now the Trailblazers sit in the 9th spot in the NBA lottery position. If you stay in that spot, you have a 4.5% chance to land the number 1 overall pick, which, of course, is Cooper Flagg. More importantly, you have a 20.3% chance to jump up into the top 4. Now, the team that's right in front of them in number 8 in the lottery position is San Antonio. And both of them right now, well, the Blazers have 44 losses, the Spurs have 45. And they play tomorrow. So the Blazers have a chance to move into the 8th spot in the lottery order before the end of the season. If they do that, they'll have a 6% chance at the number 1 pick and a 26.3% chance to jump up into the top 4. So it's pretty clear what the Blazers were trying to accomplish. Now, again, these are just things that I was thinking about last night and this morning as I was driving down here to Spirit Mountain Casino. So do I have an issue with what the Blazers did last night? Absolutely not. You let the guys play and compete and try to reach the play-in, and when it became clear that they were not going to be able to reach the play-in, you changed focus and did what was best for the franchise. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm sure it's frustrating for Coach Billups to be in a position to win, and even though you have an outside shot to reach the play-in at this point after the Kings win last night, you still want to try to win and get as many wins on the record as you possibly can. Coach Billups is a competitor and he wants to win games. So then I was like, okay, well, why would Coach Billups, if the decision is made that they don't want to win the game because they want to secure their lottery position, why would a coach agree to just throw a game away like that at the end if he's not going to be back with the team next year? And there's a chance that Billups is not going to be back with the team next year. So why would he do it? Why would he care what Joe Cronin thinks or what any other team thinks if he's not going to be back with that team? And from what I can, gather, and from my understanding is that, when it comes to these type of organizational decisions, if the front office wants to make a maneuver and they want to do something specific in that type of situation, and the coach does not agree to do that, then that's the type of word that could get around about the coach, that you're not willing to buy in, you're going to go rogue and do your own thing, and you don't buy into the concept of the organization. And that can be bad for a guy moving forward, and that's ultimately why you agree to make decisions and be a part of the collective group when it comes to determining what's best for the franchise. So that's my understanding on it. Now, with Coach Billups, I've not heard anything to indicate he's going to come back and be with the team next year. The Blazers could pick up the option. They could give him an extension, or they can just part ways because his contract will expire if they don't pick up the option. And then he'll be free to coach somewhere else. And I do think Coach Billups is going to get another job probably sooner rather than later based on the work that he's done in Portland. Now, I like Chauncey. I really like the guy a lot. I was a big fan of his as a player. He is a great human being to interact with. He treats people with respect. He's a very likable guy. And from what I've seen as a coach, he has shown improvement year to year to year in Portland. You got to remember when he took over, he had no experience. And now with experience, you can see that he's getting better. More of an understanding of how, certain situations work within game, how to manage a game, how to manage challenges, how to manage timeouts. And he's become more organized, more decisive in his decision-making. He's challenging players. He's holding them accountable. Like, he's doing all the things that you want to see a guy do, and he's having success from it. But most importantly, he and his staff have done a heck of a job of developing the young talent on the roster. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if the Blazers decided to extend Chauncey Billups and bring him back on a multi-year deal, I would have no problem with that. And at the same time, if Joe Cronin wants to move on and find a different coach that he thinks is a better match for the young talent on the roster, I don't have a problem with that because they've given Chauncey plenty of time. Joe Cronin did not hire Chauncey Billups, and most GMs who take over and start running a team, at some point they get to hire their own coach. So if Joe decides to do that, it's only, right that the GM gets a chance to work with the coach that he wants to work with. So I don't have a problem either way based on what they decide to do. And I do not have an issue with what the Blazers did last night. And the reason why is because they honored what they said they were going to do, at the deadline and after the All-Star break. That they were going to honor the players' competition and allow them to continue to pursue a play-in spot. And they did that right up until the time when they realized that making the play-in was not going to be a possibility. So I just don't understand how you could be upset about that. I mean, anytime you see teams at this time of year, making maneuvers to not, give their best to win, it's a little bit weird, but at least they competed right up until the end, right up until the final week of the regular season. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's good business. And frankly, at this point, here's the way I look at it. This is simply put. If you know that you're not going to make the postseason and you know that you no longer have an opportunity to reach the play-in, then why not make sure you can have the best possible position in the lottery that you can? It's pretty simple. They didn't tank this year. They played, and they played well, and they developed their young players. And now we have a pretty good idea of what they got with Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Tamani, and Denny, and the rest of the crew. And that's what it's all about. So I don't have a problem with it. It just took me a moment to process. Like in a key game on a 15-2 run, you look up, you're like, wait, where's Denny? Why is their best player not on the floor right now? We're sharp. And so it took me a moment to process it. But that's it. I think that's the entire situation as best I understand it. And there you have it. That's how it went down. And that's the case. And so now the Blazers have 4 games to go. So my guess would be with San Antonio, the team that they're locked in with in this battle for lottery position, I would not expect the Blazers to give a lot of minutes tomorrow to their best players. So I would not expect Ant to play. I would not expect Scoot to come back from the concussion protocol. I would not expect Tamani Kamara with the ankle to play tomorrow. And I wouldn't expect Denny to play 39 minutes. That's just pretty much my read on the situation based on what we saw last night in Chicago. Based on what we saw last night in Chicago, I would guess that the Blazers they're going to go young tomorrow. Let's just put it that way. They'll have a young roster out there, as will the Spurs. So that's going to be a very interesting game to see how it plays out and how badly each side wants to get to where they want to be. But right now, they're separated by 1 game in the loss column. One game. 44 losses for Portland, 45 for the Spurs. So that would be a productive, let's just put it this way. If you're going to lose a game, tomorrow would be a very productive loss for both sides. And that's how it's going to play out. But 4 games to go. San Antonio tomorrow, the Utah Jazz on Wednesday. They're pretty secure. The teams right now, Utah 16-62, Washington at 17-60, and Charlotte at 19-58. Right behind them, New Orleans and Philadelphia. And that's your teams, your top 5 of the lottery order as it sits. Now the teams at the top 3 teams in the lottery order have a 14% chance at number 1 and a 52.1% chance to jump into the top 4. If you're in 4th, where New Orleans sits, it's 12.5% chance for 1 and a 48.1% chance to go top 4. And then down from there, Philadelphia at 5, they have a 10.5% chance to 1 and a 42.1% chance to go into the top 10. 6th is 9th, or 9% and 37.2%. Toronto, who's currently in 7th, 7.5% chance with a 31.9% chance to jump into the top 4. So there you have it. That's the latest. That's the case, and we'll go from there. Now, my buddy Luke, my workout partner of 33 years, he's down in San Jose right now doing a Spartan race. And he says the beast was about 3.5 hours. Super and sprint will take another 3 to 4 hours. for the 2. So in all, 25 miles, 80 to 85 obstacles, 7.5 hours. Good times. Goodness gracious. Now, this is where I've never done a Spartan race, but my workout partner, Luke, is as strong as an ox. Can you imagine doing that? He says the beast was 3.5 hours. The super and the sprint will take another 3 to 4 hours for the 2. So in all, 25 miles, 80 to 85 obstacles in 7.5 hours. Jeez. That's insane. I didn't realize it was that much. All right, let's keep things rolling. I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Brian No, Fox Sports Radio is coming up. He's going to join me at around 3:20-ish. Michael Shacker is with me. And we're getting ready for the Final Four. We're probably about 30 minutes away. 30 minutes away from tip-off, or maybe a little less. Yeah, about 30 minutes. We got the first game, Florida and Auburn. Right now the Gators are a 2.5-point favorite here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Total set at 159.5. The second game, Houston and Duke. Certainly Duke is Duke. Blue Devils are a 4.5-point favorite, and the total set at 136.5. All right, I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. You can come down and join and watch the action. I'll be down here on Monday as well for the RipCity Drive from 3 until 6 here on 620 RipCity Radio. Yeah, this is a great song. All right, Chad Doing, I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino for the Final Four. Your place to bet on college sports. And if you're coming down as we near tip time, Game 1's going to tip off at 3:09. Florida and Auburn, and right now the Gators are a 2.5-point favorite. Total set at 159.5. Duke and Houston will tip off at 5:49. The Blue Devils a 4.5-point favorite. Line did jump up to 5.5, but it's gone back down to 4.5. And the total set at 136.5. If you're looking for a team to win the championship now with the Final Four set, Duke at -115, Florida at +310, Houston at +450, and Auburn at +575. Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, going to join us coming up at roughly 3:20. And then we got Hops Baseball coming up later on today here on 620 Rip City Radio. Shaq and I were just talking about buffets. Do you do buffets? I mean, do you like buffets? Do you go and seek out a buffet? Now, I remember these cafeterias when I was growing up. And Nana was a big fan of, like, I think it was called Fur's Cafeteria, and then I think there was another one called Luby's, where you would go in and, you know, the cafeteria style where you grab your plate and you got your little tray in and you walk through and you select different food items, right, that are right there in front of you, and then they put them on the plate and give them to you. It's similar to a buffet. And then they came out with, the Old Country Buffet. Obviously, buffets for years in Vegas were very popular. They used to have the Cedar Plank Buffet here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, all I can tell you is that for me, I don't do buffets. I mean, unless it's like, it would have to be a high-end elite buffet. Have you ever had food poisoning? It happened to me one time, and I'll never forget where I was at. TGI Fridays in Vancouver. That was kind of one of the key hangout spots back in the day. Well, they had this black bean soup, and so one night I was there at Fridays. I was having some black bean soup, and everything was fine. And then a couple hours later, I was at home, and then before you know it, I felt like my stomach, I felt like it was the movie Alien, where Sigourney Weaver was going to pop out and try and save me. I felt like something was growing inside of my stomach. Alien, and it was so bizarre. And then all of a sudden my body started getting really hot and I started sweating profusely, and then before you know it, I'm lying on the bathroom floor, and then I started vomiting uncontrollably. And for a period of about roughly 12 hours, you ever have those moments where you're so sick and you feel so awful that you're like, you know what, I think I want to die. And if I do die right now, I'm okay with that, because I'm going to die and be relieved of the anguish that I am in. Lord, if you would like to take my soul now and remove me from this body, I would be perfectly okay with that decision. Because you don't want to go on. It's like, I've never felt this bad in my life. Well, that's how that experience was with the food poisoning. And I have not had black bean soup since that day. I am never going to eat black bean soup ever again. And from that day forward, I don't take chances on food. That means I don't take chances on buffets, because I don't know where that food came from and how long ago it was cooked. I don't know who's been handling the food. I don't know what people have touched the food. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with buffets. I'm just saying that there's too many variables there for me to take a chance on it. And I do the same thing at home. If I buy food, and I don't like to waste things, but if I buy something and there's any question in my mind, like the other day I had these fresh veggies that I buy from Trader Joe's. I like to use them for dinner. And I had some butternut squash. It didn't look quite the way it should, and therefore I had a question mark. And so I'm like, I'm out. And so I threw it away, because I don't want to take the chance of hitting food poisoning again. But when I hear that, why take chances, it reminds me of one of the coolest commercials of all time, and I'm referring to the Colt 45 commercial with Billy D. Williams. Take a listen to this. It is truly legendary.
D. Williams talks about Colt 45.
There are two rules to remember if you want to have a good time. Rule number 1, never run out of Colt 45. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. You want to know why you should keep plenty of Colt 45 on hand? You never know when friends might show up. I don't claim you can have a better time with Colt 45 than without it. But why take chances?
The power of Colt 45. It works every time.
That is truly one.
I mean, let's talk about.
It's one of the most remarkable commercials of all time. He's basically saying, look, if you want tail, get Colt 45. But that's my philosophy when it comes to buffets and potlucks. Why take chances? Nice work, Shacker. Appreciate the Weird Al Yankovic, too. All right, Brian knows coming up at 3:20. Final Four is going to tip off here in about 15 minutes. Live here at Spirit Mountain Casino, your Northwest premier entertainment destination, your place to bet on college sports. First game, Auburn and Florida coming up in just a few moments on CBS.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE. Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
H-Town, ready to invade the Alamo City. The Houston Cougars, for the 7th time in school history, are headed to the Final Four. A 69-50 win over the Tennessee Volunteers.
Final seconds come off. War Eagle for the second time in 6 years. Bruce Pearl taking the Auburn Tigers to the Final Four. They defeat Michigan State in Atlanta 70-64.
Williams throws the baseball pass. It is intercepted by Condon, and it's a great day to be a Florida Gator. For the 6th time in school history, the first since 2014, the Florida Gators are going to the Final Four. Florida 84, Texas Tech 79, and the Gators go to San Antonio.
In just the 3rd year after Coach K, Duke is returning to basketball's biggest stage. He won an NCAA title as a player. He won an NCAA title as an assistant. And now John Shire is bringing this Duke team to the Final Four as the head coach. 85-65, the final here in Newark. Duke advances to the Final Four.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
All right, we're just a couple of moments away from tip-off. Game number 1 with Florida and Auburn, and I guess the SEC did pretty well. You know, we knew going into the tournament they got 14 of their 16 teams in. They had a rough start to the tournament in the early rounds, but their 2 best teams, Auburn and Florida, able to shine through and reach the Final Four. So we're going to have that game tip-off in just a couple of moments. They're doing the national anthem down at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. Right now, Florida is still remaining a 2.5-point favorite over Auburn, with the total set at 159.5. And then we'll get Houston and Duke at 549. The Blue Devils right now a 4.5-point favorite. The line jumped to 5.5 and now is down to 4.5 with the total set at 136.5. On the money lines, Auburn is plus 125, Florida minus 150. And in game number 2, Duke minus 275 and Houston plus 225. And if you're picking a team to win, and you can get your wager in right now, Duke minus 115. They're the odds-on favorite at this point with Cooper Flagg. Florida plus 310. They've been on fire of late. Auburn is plus 575 in Houston, who I think you're getting pretty good value at plus 450. So there you have it. Final Four is about to kick off. I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino in the Sportsbook getting ready for the Final Four. And I'll be down here on Monday as well from 3 until 6 for the championship game. And I'll be hosting the March Mania drawing. So get down here and join me. And people are starting to file into the Sportsbook now that the Final Four is getting ready to tip off. And it's a tough day because the weather's nice. So guys out there battling their significant others trying to figure out how they're going to spend their time when they'd rather be watching the Final Four from San Antonio. Dave Barberis, the little general from the Trailblazers, hit me up and said, "I'm so jealous. I used to love our remote shows at Spirit Mountain Casino with G. Allen and company. They even generously put me up for the night down there. And, of course, the next morning we had the breakfast brunch buffet, which, among other things, included whole quarters of Dungeness crab, all you could eat along with anything else you could possibly imagine eating for breakfast or lunch or even dinner. It was exquisite and very affordable. I wish I was there with you. Please give my love to Shaq Daddy. Now I'm going to go outside and do a little yard work, and after that, prepare dinner. Black bean soup. I doubt that. You do not want black bean soup, my friend. I can't do it. Once you have a bad experience with certain things and you're traumatized, you just know you're not going to go in that direction ever again. And for me, that would be black bean soup. I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't need it to be a part of my life. It's a scary proposition because that food poisoning, I was like, that was about as bad as it gets. But for me, you know, with these teams here that are remaining, Duke obviously doing it differently than everyone else because, they've got the freshmen and they've got the young guys. And I'm very impressed by John Shire, their coach. The tough part for John Shire is he took over for an absolute legend in Coach K. And when you're taking over for a legend like Coach K, the question is, how do you continue to forward the program and do what you need to do and move it forward and put your own imprint on the program without having the shadow hanging over the top of you? Because so many people love Coach K and all the success he had at Duke. He was a legend. Well, I think there's a couple of keys there. One, Coach K was a part of the transition, and they've shown full confidence in Shire, who's been able to bring in his own vision and a youthful exuberance for the job and being able to connect with players in his own way. And what's been great about his success is that he coaches these guys hard. And one of the things I love most about the tournament that I've seen so far is the way that John Shire coaches Cooper Flagg like he does anybody else on the team. And I think we all know this, is that as a coach, when you can coach your best player just like the guy at the end of the bench, it makes your job so much easier. And guys are going to respect that. And if they see Cooper Flagg getting chewed on by his coach, then they know that anything's possible. But I love that response where I think Cooper Flagg earlier in the tournament left his feet to make a pass, and Shire got on him. He got on his ass. And he explained the situation, and Coop looked at him and said, "Yes, coach," which is the perfect response from a star player like Cooper Flagg. But that's Duke. Great offense. Cooper Flagg is the star, and they're doing it with freshmen. Now, with Houston, the one difference this year, unlike years past, is they can shoot the rock. A much better shooting team, but they're known for their defense. Kelvin Sampson is a tough coach. He demands his teams to be physically tough, and they're going to try and overwhelm you from the tip with their defense and their physicality. And that's going to be the big challenge for Duke today. Can they match it? How do they match up with it? And can they adjust quickly to the physicality and the defense of Houston and be able to get to their spots and get the shots that they want? So keep an eye on that. How quickly does Duke adjust to the physicality that Houston's going to bring to the table? Now, with Auburn, they've been the best team in the country from start up until finish, the most consistent team. They had a rough patch right at the end of the season, but they have straightened out, and now they're once again back to protecting the rim, doing a good job of defending out there on the perimeter, and they're playing good basketball. And for Florida, they're just explosive. And they got Clayton, who's awesome, but they're an explosive team that can hit you with big runs. I mean, furious runs that come quick. And so those runs hit you, and then all of a sudden you're like, what just happened here? So every team that's in the Final Four, they've got different elements to their attack that are effective, and we're going to see how it's going to play out. I think Houston's a good value getting 4.5 against Duke. I want Duke to win. I want Cooper Flagg to get into the championship game because I want to see that. But I do think Duke's going to have a tough time. And with Florida and Auburn, I mean, it's basically like a coin flip, and that's why the line is so close. I give a slight edge to Auburn because I respect their coach, Bruce Pearl, a great deal, but that's going to be highly contested. Now, next weekend, we got the Masters. It's going to kick off on Thursday, which is terrific, and I can't wait. I love the Masters, but Justin was telling me, the sportsbook manager, that Bryson DeChambeau right now, you can get him at 20-1 odds to win the tournament. I kind of like that wager. I just like Bryson. But, the cool thing about golf tournaments, if you're going to get down, you can pick a player, wager on them, and then you got a player to pay attention to throughout the course of the tournament. He also said that once they get in later into next week, that they'll have these different wagers you can do on particular days of the tournament, where it could be a couple of guys in the same pairing, but you can bet player against player to see who wins the day, whether it be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So you've got, a different matchup and a different play inside of the tournament. So you could have a player to win, but you could pick a different matchup and then go, who you think is going to win that matchup. Maybe it's, Rory against Scotty on one particular day. And those are the two favorites by far, Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. But that's very interesting with the Masters coming up. And we'll get PGA Dave on next week to talk about the Masters. I love it. I'll be pulling for Bryson. He's my guy now. And I like to watch him play, but the Masters is my favorite of the four majors. I like the Masters. I love the course. I love Hole 13. I love the drama. I love the history, the tradition, all of it. And the Masters app, I would say, is probably right up there near the top in terms of, apps that you can utilize. I would say the Masters app is really good. But we're now getting ready for tip-off here with Florida and Auburn. It looks like SEC fan has done a good job of filling up the Alamo Dome. I have not been to the Alamo Dome. Shacker's been down there, down in San Antonio. I think the Beavers played Texas like back in, I think it was 2013. Beavers and Longhorns in the Alamo Bowl back when Mike Riley was still head coach at Oregon State. So that's what we got going on. Sean hits me up and he says, I like Denver Jones with Auburn. He comes to play. Yeah, Denver Jones is tough. And he's one of their key defenders out there in the perimeter. So I guess I'm pulling for in my little bracket pool, this challenge I'm in. I've got Auburn and Duke in the championship game. So I guess that's my own personal interest. But like I said, I don't know, man. Florida's playing really good right now, and Houston is tough defensively. I've liked Kelvin Sampson for years at Washington State, and then, of course, coached for years at Oklahoma and had great success. He's been successful no matter where he goes. He's just one of those guys that's figured it out. But 4 good coaches in the Final Four as well. The only thing that's weird about the Final Four is that, they play the tournament in these other normal basketball arenas, but then the Final Four, they always hold it in like these giant domes, these football stadiums. We've seen it up in the King Dome. We've seen it down in Arizona, in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. If I were playing hoop, I wouldn't want to play in the dome, and that's because the depth perception, with those big stadiums, it jacks up your shooting touch. And so I don't think it creates the best possible game. And I've talked to Michael Holt and the different guys who have played in those type of settings, and it does. The big backdrop, it messes with your depth perception, so it makes it harder to be on fire from downtown. But we see that all the time. So the game is just tipped off, so we're underway with Auburn and Florida, and then Duke and Houston coming up at 5:49. So on Monday, come on down and enjoy the championship game. I think it's going to tip off at around 6 or just after 6 o'clock, but I'll be down here with the RipCity Drive from 3 until 6. And then during that time as well, we'll have the March Mania drawings. So a chance for you to get down here, make some money in the drawings. You can hang out and get down on the game, whatever the title game may be, and then we'll hang out here and enjoy the championship game in the Final Four. I think it's a good way to do it. And it's a good excuse for you to get out of work early on Monday when you got the championship game coming up. The problem is I checked the weather. It's nice outside right now, but I don't think it's going to be nice over the next few days. More rain coming in. And then we got the Final Four games of the Trailblazers season coming up starting tomorrow. They got the Spurs tomorrow, at Utah against the Jazz on Wednesday, and then back-to-back home games to finish out the year. Friday night, the Golden State Warriors with Steph and Jimmy Butler, assuming they play. And then the finale, 12:30 tip on Sunday afternoon, next Sunday. The Lakers are going to be in town. So there you have it. Blazers' final 4 games of the season. And what a grind the end of the NBA season is with games coming all over the place. But I think that's what happened last night. I think the Blazers, once they saw the Kings' result and their win in Charlotte, I think they made the decision to shift and focus on their lottery position. And right now the Blazers are 9th in the current lottery standings, which gives them a 20.3% chance to jump up into the top 4, and then a 4.5% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. But I'm okay with their decision-making and what they decided to do last night. The most important thing from day one up until now, it wasn't about the play-in. It was about player development. That's what this year was all about, to know what they had in these 5 guys. And the best part is the emergence of Scoot Henderson, who has, throughout the year slowly gotten better, shooting the 3-ball better. The game is starting to slow down. He's got better decision-making. He's, cutting down on his turnovers from year 1 to year 2. And just looking a lot more confident out there on the floor. And like each of the 5 guys, he's had a couple of big nights where you see the flashes of brilliance. With Shaedon Sharpe, he has really turned it on over the last couple of months. He got benched for lack of attention to detail on defense, which he's responded to. He's shown his finishing at the rim, where since the All-Star break, he's been the best at finishing around 80% at the rim in the restricted area, which is terrific. He's showcasing his ability to get into the lane and finish. The step back looks pretty nice, showing his ability from downtown. He's still got to continue to work and refine his skills defensively and remain consistent on that end of the floor. But Shaedon Sharpe has had many nights where, like Scoot, has showcased his brilliance and what he's capable of. Donovan Clingan, probably the best thing that happened to him was just the injuries, right? Ayton goes out with the calf. And then Robert Williams is out with the knee, and what that's done is it thrusts the rookie Donovan Clingan into a starting role. So early in the season, as he was getting used to the NBA game and the officiating, his conditioning was not up where he needed to be. But he continued to work, and then as the injuries happened and he got a chance to start, he's playing more and more minutes now. He's proven to be an elite shot blocker, a good defender around the rim. He's still got to learn and develop when it comes to defending in space, but I saw him do a great contest last night on a corner three. But that's how teams attack him, either in drop coverage or a team like Boston that we saw a couple of weeks ago that utilized his size and made him defend in space. They put Al Horford on the court. So he's going to continue to learn through those moments, but, he's made good progress and doing a better job of showing some touch and finishing around the rim. And then the two brightest stars have been Toumani Camara. Camara for a couple of obvious reasons. One, we knew he was a great defender last year, and he's taken it to the next level this year defensively. Just look at the number of charges he's drawn. And now what we're seeing with Toumani Camara is an improved three-point shot. He's been great on the catch-and-shoot threes. And now what he's added to his game is the ability to put the ball on the floor and attack the rim on the closeout. And so you're getting better offensive balance from Toumani Camara in those situations. And then the other guy, the other remaining player of the five young guys that we were focusing on throughout the year in terms of player development is Deni Avdija, who came in and got up to a bit of a slow start, wasn't making his shots with regularity, but it didn't take long, and once he settled into his role on the team, he got more comfortable. And then Coach Billups continued to load him up with more and more responsibility to where he's become a primary playmaker. He's initiated the offense. He's become a shot maker. He's been the guy to really push the tempo and get out in transition. And once he gets the ball off a rebound, man, he is straight up the court. That's why he got the nickname Flash, because he is up the court looking to make things happen. He's a good defender. He can defend multiple positions on the floor. He's shown his physicality. He has come along brilliantly, and I think in a lot of ways exceeded expectation on levels that we just didn't see happening. All right, Final Four is now underway. Right now it is tied up at 8 early in the first half with 16 minutes to play, Auburn and Florida. And then we got Duke and Houston coming up at 5:49. When we come back on the RipCity Drive special Saturday edition from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports, we're going to be joined by Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio. We'll talk Final Four with B-No, get his take on what he's looking at here with these four teams, and then we'll touch on some football as well. So Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio is coming up next. I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Don't forget, I'll be live down here on Monday for the championship game from 3 until 6. It's your place to bet on college sports. Come down and join me and hang out as we take in the championship. All right, RipCity Drive, and joining us right now is my good friend and my brother from Fox Sports Radio, Mr. Brian Obino. What's up, brother?
What is going on, Chad doing? Always a good day to talk ball, right? Any day that ends with day is a good day to talk ball. I think you would agree with that.
I agree. I want to start with this. I know a lot of people were upset that we didn't get more upsets in the NCAA tournament, that we didn't have any madness. There's no double-digit seeds in the Final Four, but we do get 4 number ones, and the 4 teams that have proven throughout the regular season and the tournament they are the 4 best teams, and we have star power with guys like Cooper Flagg. Are you excited about the Final Four being 4 number 1 seeds for the first time since 2008?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely fired up for it. You got 2 great matchups. These have been the best teams all season long, and they faced off against each other. It makes no sense to me to not be fired up for this. You know, like, how can you not? If you're a basketball fan and you see the best versus the best, I get that you might want to see a few upsets in the early rounds, Chad, but what if Colorado State beat Maryland? You'd be more fired up for the Final Four? You know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I think these are 2 great matchups, and I can't wait to see how they both go down.
Yeah, what I'm really enjoying is, you know, hearing about a guy like Cooper Flagg and then being able to watch him throughout the year and then seeing him in the tournament and realizing how high level he is at such a young age, like the anticipatory passing, getting to his spot, making big plays. But here's what I love most about him, and I love this with all big-time basketball players. I like guys who are willing passers, who care about getting their teammates involved. And I've heard John Shire talk about this, that his biggest weakness is that there are times where they want him to be more aggressive and more assertive. And to me, that just reeks of being a superstar.
Yeah, I can't remember what he said to Tracy Wolfson, but it was something like that, where she was like, you know, you need to see more from Cooper Flagg in terms of being aggressive and looking for his own shot. And he just said something like, more, something like that. It was just like need more Cooper Flagg. But yeah, you're right. It's a little bit of like a Kevin Love type thing, you know, where Kevin Love is a great passer.
Yeah.
And Cooper Flagg has that as part of his game. It's not like the black hole where you throw it to him and he's shooting it. You know, he's looking to get his teammates involved. And so that's always interesting, right? It's the juggling act. A little like Jokic. Jokic is an unbelievable passer. And there are times where you're like, Jokic, dude, you just got to hunt right now. You got to be the guy. And he has a great feel of when to pass it and when to just get a bucket. And so maybe Cooper Flagg, that's something to keep in mind going forward, where he looks at it almost as selfishness, but it's really not. It's actually playing to the benefit of the team when he's aggressive. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see him develop into that at the next level, where he's looking for his own bucket or he's looking for teammates to score, because you have to get a great feel for that, especially at the NBA level.
You know what's crazy, B? Like when you and I were growing up, everyone hated Duke. They either loved them as Duke fans or everyone hated Duke, and Christian Laettner was a lightning rod for controversy. But this year, this team with Cooper Flagg, I don't get the same sense of hatred for Duke like we got in the past. Isn't that kind of crazy how a guy can come in and take Duke to the Final Four and somehow, some way, people are on board with that?
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it? Because, man, you and I, we remember back in the day.
It was wild.
Just how hated they were, right?
Yeah.
Like when Christian Laettner was stepping on a Kentucky player's chest. They were despised, not just hated. Oh, they were like loathed. You think about I hate Christian Laettner 30 for 30. That's what it was. They like broke down step by step why they were so hated.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not like that, at least with this team, where I wouldn't go as far as to say they're likable to like a North Carolina fan, but they're not as hateable as they have been. I get some of those teams where, you know, Wojo is like smacking the floor and getting down in his defensive stance. And you're like, oh, get out of here with all of that, right? But yeah, with Cooper Flagg and Knipple, and they're just such a big team. And they're not cocky. I just don't think they're as hateable as some other Duke teams.
No, I'm with you on that 100%. And that 30 for 30, I hate Christian Laettner, is one of the best I've seen. It was terrific. Now, you mentioned something, with Jokic. How about this week on the same night we had Steph Curry hit 52 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists with 12 threes. on the same night that Jokic had the third 60-point triple-double in NBA history. That is unbelievable. Those two guys are freaks.
They are, man. They are. They're sensational, and I just feel bad for Jokic with Westbrook, who I've defended over the years. There's no defense for smoking a layup when he didn't even need to take the layup because they were up by a point with like 13 seconds to go, and then he fouls a guy with 0.1 seconds left. Like, that's unbelievable that Denver invented a way to lose that game. But you're right. Jokic was just sensational, man. What more can you say about the guy? A 61-point triple-double? Like, this is the best season he's had in the NBA, and he's not going to win MVP because partly SGA has balled out. SGA has had a magnificent season, but it's also voter fatigue, Chad, and that sucks where you can't tell me for a second if Jokic was looking for his first MVP and SGA was the guy with 3 MVPs already, that Jokic wouldn't be winning his first this year. Like, we haven't seen these numbers in the history of the NBA. So I dislike that the voter fatigue enters in there, but SGA is a worthy candidate. It's just you and I know the votes would be so much different if previous seasons were different, and I think that sucks for this season.
I do too, and of course you and I lived through a day and age where Michael Jordan was the MVP, and yet they gave it to Karl Malone and Charles Barkley because they were tired of giving it to MJ. And my whole thought is, if you're great and deserving, I don't give a flip how many MVPs you won. You should keep collecting them until you're no longer that guy.
Yeah, and I can't remember what happened recently where it was like if you hit a certain threshold, every player has won an MVP by hitting this threshold. And it was like the exception was Michael Jordan in '97. It was like, oh, yeah, remember that whole thing where, Jordan was bent that he didn't win it that year. And he was just going after Karl Malone, who won it. And, you're right. It's that voter fatigue that's just such trash. I think all these voters should look at whoever it is, just that season alone. If Ohtani wins the next 8 NL MVPs, great. If he's the most deserving guy, he should win it every single year, just like MJ, just like Jokic, just like Curry. Just look at it for that season alone instead of like the historical context. That has never made sense to me.
All right, I want to talk to you about the NFL. I'm getting sick and tired of these owners who are jealous because the Philadelphia Eagles are kicking their ass right now. And I love what the NFL did this week where they had discussions about getting rid of the tush push, but they didn't have the support that was necessary to get rid of it. So they tabled it, and they're going to revisit it in a couple of months. And the problem I have with this is it feels like the commissioner's like, I really want to get rid of this play. We don't have the data or the support to do it now. So we're going to table it for a couple of months. We'll go and find the data we need to take care of this. I don't like it because you're penalizing one team. There's only one team that uses the play to perfection. That's the Eagles. You should not take a play out of the game just because one team's figured out how to perfect it with their personnel. I don't like it. What do you say?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I've thought this for a while. I'll be completely honest with you, Chad, because at first I wasn't a big fan of it, where I'm like, this looks like rugby and it's kind of weird to push a ball carrier. But I really, over the last couple of years, I came around and I'm fully on board with the tush push, where this is really the essence of football if you think about it. The essence of football, it's built on physicality. Like, certainly there's skill, there's, precision that comes into the fold, but it's based on physicality. It's if I can overpower you, like that's not against the rules. It's very rarely against the rules to just simply overpower the guy in front of you. And that's what the Eagles are doing. Like, think about some of the most physical players in the history of the game, like Ray Lewis. If he just decleated you, there wasn't like an automatic penalty. It was like, hey, tough luck, man. Maybe, get a little bit lower next time. Or if Jerome Bettis just ran right over you, all you would get as a defender is the official yelling like first down or touchdown in your face. And that's it. It's like, it just kind of sucks to be you. That's how I feel about the defenders. It's like, It's one, either find a way to stop it, or two, shut up about not being able to stop it. That's really where we're at with this whole thing. And I love that a GM called out the Packers and others for trying to ban this thing and said that they're just being soft. Yeah. And that's what it is. They're being soft. And we're acting like this is the most physical play and the injury risks. And that's not what it is. It's just defenses can't stop it, and they don't like it. But imagine, Chad, if we did that for everything else. What if it was, hey, Mahomes with Tyreek Hill, they're throwing the deep ball. It's hard to defend. No more passes over 40 yards. Or you know what I mean? Like, if we're just changing rules because you can't stop it, what are we doing to the game? That's just dumb.
I know. I really don't like it. It really bothers me. And it's just – and here's why. Because if it were the Jets who were dominating with this one play and still winning 4 or 5 games a year, no one would care and they wouldn't try to get rid of the play. But because it's the Eagles and they're better than – basically everyone else in the league right now, it becomes a problem. I despise it. I don't like it because it is soft. And my whole thought is, it's like, if you don't like someone doing something, figure out a way to stop it. They figured out how to perfect the play, figure out a way to stop it, right? That's competition.
That's right. That's the essence of competition right there. And it's funny because a lot of these teams like the Packers and everybody else trying to get rid of it, they're violating like what they have been against for a long time, what you're just saying right there, where, hey, listen, if you're getting dominated, 56-7, well, do something about it. Don't whine. Don't say, oh, it was this and that, or don't complain, right? Like, how often do we hear this, Chad? If someone's dancing in the end zone in your face, it's like, well, prevent them from scoring. Like, don't let them get into the end zone. And now that has just been thrown out the window. And because the Eagles can't be stopped, it's like, oh, we should change this. We should ban it. It's like, no, you should stop it or shut up about it.
Yeah.
And I love your point. You're right. If this was some other team, if this is the Jets winning 6-7 games and they've perfected this, no one would care. But it's the world champs. It's defending champion Eagles, and now it's a huge problem. I don't look at it like that. At the end of the day, we're talking about a yard or two. That's something else. Don't let them get to 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, right? Like, how is this just an Eagles problem and not a you problem? Like, play better defense and don't be in short yardage in the first place. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Patriots when they were dominating with Brady and Belichick. The owners who were jealous, they would go out and try to just accuse them of being cheaters and try to take away from the fact that Brady and Belichick are just better than everyone else. It's got the same type of feel. It's icky. It's like, come on now.
No, I hear you. Yeah, and that's the thing where because the Patriots were so great, and they did cheat, but it was like, oh, Deflategate, this is the biggest advantage ever. Like if the ball has less air, look at their fumbling numbers. They never fumble. It's like there's barely any air in this ball. And it's like, no, they're just great. They're great and they're dumb. I don't know why they look for these little advantages. But you're right. It got just blown up into being anything with like stepping over the line. The ultimate advantage in NFL history. And it's like, no, other teams were doing the same thing. Spygate happened with many other teams, not named the Patriots. But it's the ultimate advantage with the Patriots. Okay. It's just because they're great at what they do.
I'm talking with Bino, Fox Sports Radio. Now, Brian, I've got to ask you about this. Normally, I'm against everything that Jimmy Haslam has ever done because he's crazy and the Browns have been a mess for quite some time. But this quote that he dropped this week about his quarterback situation with Deshaun Watson is amazing. Quote, "We took a big swing and miss with Deshaun. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't, and we gave up a lot of draft picks to get him, so we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole." That is one of the most incredible quotes from an owner when he still has the same player that he's talking about on his roster.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that crazy, Chad? And he's right. I mean, they took a colossal swing, and it was a colossal miss. But I just think it's funny where people have gotten amnesia as if the Browns were the only team trying to trade for Deshaun Watson. Yeah. I've heard a lot of this where the Browns tried to pull a fast one. They tried to be slick, and they got what they deserved. And you can sell me on they got what they deserved, but they were not the only team trying to trade for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
There were other teams trying to do the same thing. That's why the price was so high, Chad.
Yeah.
The Browns are like, well, shoot, we're not going to get this guy unless we trade all these draft picks and give him $230 guaranteed. That's the only way they're going to get him in the first place, but it's been a disaster. And listen, I get why they did it. That's the other thing. You think about that quarterback, like that jersey with all the names of the failed quarterbacks over the years, and it just stretches on down to the floor. I get why they took that swing, but, man, it could not have worked out more miserably. It's worked out so miserably. No one's been like – you pointed it out, like, this guy's still on the team. What? It's like it failed that badly. Jimmy Haslam can say that and be completely right about saying it. That's how bad it's gone.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with a team because you know how this goes. If Deshaun would have ended up playing MVP-type football and the Browns were relevant again, no one would say that they were idiots for giving him $230 million fully guaranteed. But the fact that it didn't work out, it looks crazy. But again, I understand the temptation, right? Because like I do, that if you get the guy, the superstar quarterback, regardless of how you do it, draft, you overpay or whatever, if you get that guy, it's all worth it, That's why teams are tempted to do crazy stuff like that.
What's crazy, Chad, is I was doing like a little side-by-side comparison between the Commanders and the Browns, right? And I don't have everything in front of me, but it's like the last 3 decades. Like put last season to the side, where the Washington Commanders, they drafted Jaden Daniels, and he was unbelievable. Like just put that to the side for a second. For the better part of the last 3 decades, the Browns and the Washington Commanders have been like that Superman meme where they're pointing at each other. They've been the same franchises, right? Dan Snyder, they can't do anything. It's like the Commanders, they made it to the playoffs 6 times. The Browns made it like 4 times since 92 or something like. It's been like the last 30 years. The Browns weren't even a franchise for 3 of those years, right, when they moved to Baltimore. But very, very comparable lack of success for both the Commanders and the Browns over about a 30-year period. And then Washington drafted Jaden Daniels, and poof, 13 wins. They're in the NFC title game. Like, that's what the Browns were trying to do with the Deshaun Watson trade. And that's, you said it, man, that's the power of actually hitting on the right quarterback. And the Browns didn't do that, and it looks like the Commanders sure have. That was a sensational rookie season. But look where the Browns are right now and where the Commanders are. And those guys were looking at each other like they were identical twins for the last 30 years. And now they look like polar opposites because Washington has a QB and Cleveland doesn't. But that's where it can go when you do hit on that guy.
All right, Brian, how has your wagering success been throughout the NCAA tournament?
You know what? Here's the deal, Chad. Are you sitting down for this?
Yes.
I gave up. One of the things, I gave up for Lent sports gambling.
What?
Can you believe that?
You must really have strong faith. That is amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So and Chad, my picks are unbelievable right now. I'd be making so much money, but it shows me, and you can attest to this. Emotion is your enemy, man, with gambling.
Oh, it's the worst.
And you and I were wired similarly, where we're competitive maniacs, and if we lose, we don't even realize it, but we're chasing.
Yeah.
Or we're emotional, and that affects your decision making. But I've really learned during this time where it's like, hey, man, if I can just take emotion out of it, I'm a lot better at this than I thought I ever was. So, yeah, I took it off for Lent. So no March Madness, no baseball right now, no NFL futures just yet. Like Easter rolls around April 20th. I might be counting down the days, Chad.
No,
and then I can get in some NFL draft bets and NBA playoff bets and all that. But, yeah, no bets during Lent here until Easter rolls around. Your boy is out of commish.
Dude, I love that. In fact, I respect it a great deal. I didn't think you could do something to get me to respect you more, but I really like that, giving up the sports wagering for Lent. Like, I've done that before where I've fasted, and I always choose something that's like a kryptonite to me. Like one time I fasted from my alarm clock in the morning, so when it went off, I got up the first time and did not use the snooze button, And I've done things like that before, but the sports wagering, that's good, man. I like that. Strengthening your inner core. Good.
That's right. That's right, Chad. I appreciate that, bud. But yeah, I'm like, look, man, I can't just keep going on. I get so frustrated, man. I'm not going to make it to 50 the way I get.
I know.
I could lose $10 and I act like it was $10 million.
Well, that's
like,
because
what am I doing?
When you see a game end the way that it should not end in the most ridiculous ways, regardless of how much you got on the game, it's like, I just got screwed.
Yes, Chad, think about if you were on the Nuggets last night and Westbrook smokes a layup and then fouls a guy with .1 on the clock and you lose. You'd lose your mind, but that's it. You can't. You're losing the next bet if you react that way.
I know. It's like, what, Westbrook, what are you doing?
Yes, I know it. But if you can just shrug your shoulders and say, hey, man, it's the way it goes. You're going to lose some disgusting games like that.
I hate that guy, too.
In your mind, you're going to win.
I know, but I hate that guy that's like, oh, well, I lose some, I win some. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And then I think they're crazy.
I know, but that's the thing. Hey, we're human. You're going to have a bit of a reaction. You just can't go crazy because, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who's never emotional to a fault. That's the sports books.
That's right.
They're not emotional to the fault. Here's the next line. Here's the next game. Here's the point spread. All that. They're not emotional to a fault, and that's the biggest advantage they have over you.
I know, and that's why Billy Walters is so great at what he's done over the years because he's got his formula. He plugs in the numbers, and he has no emotional attachment to anyone involved in the game. He is just applying the best edge that he believes based on data. And I'm like, dang, that guy's good. Love that.
That's right, man. But that's why they're good at what they do. Do you think any professional gambler would carry on? You know, like they lose even in a disgusting way. They had money on the Nuggets last night. You think they'd go crazy and like whatever? You see these videos where someone's like running into a TV like they're a bull, you know, like there's no professional gambler that's ever reacting like that. You just can't be successful reacting like that.
I know. Yeah, it's and of course the book knows too. Like there's times where they get nervous when they're, you know, when they stand to lose a lot of money when the public gets over. But they also probably know too, like, oh, that's okay. We'll get them next time. It's going to come back around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's like, hey, the odds are still in our favor, so it's all good. Like if you can react like that as a sports gambler, and you're like, hey, that was a disgusting loss, but over the long haul, I'm going to win. Like that's pretty comforting, man. But man, you know it as well as I do, Chad. You just are in that space of that day and that game and that ending, and you are just sucked into that moment. And if you can just think long term, man, you're going to save yourself a whole lot of grief.
All right, give me a second. I'm going to write the date and time down. Brian Noah and Chad doing Maturing as Men. This is pretty awesome. What's happening to us?
Don't ask us to tie down a mattress to like a flatbed, you know?
Dude, I'll never forget that moment, man. We're going to talk about it forever now because, like I said, the fact that you and I somehow use these tie downs to get a mattress to stick in the back of a truck from Hillsborough to Vancouver is beyond my understanding. And if they knew us truly, they would know that that's a small miracle.
You know what's funny, too? You had an epic line, I'll say real quick, where I was like, Chad, dude, are you, like, worried about it getting too wet? You know, like, it's raining. Are you worried about this mattress? And you go, I'm very worried about the rain. Like,
oh, dude, my dad thought for sure that thing was coming out, too. He's like, you sure you know what you're doing? I'm like, no, but we're going to give it our best. So I think he was just proud of the effort, man. It was awesome. And even like your girlfriend's family and stuff, they're looking at us and we're looking at them. And I could tell in their eye, they're like, these guys have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, it was like my girlfriend's cousins and friends. And yeah, they looked at us with positivity, but also just like skepticism.
Yeah.
Right? There was some skepticism going on. Like this might not go too well.
But hey, in the end, you cleared out your storage unit, man. You got it done.
Finally that. Oh, and I got an email the other day where it was like, hey, your renter's insurance is going to automatically renew in 60 days. And I'm like, I can cancel that.
Yep.
Don't need that anymore, baby. Beautiful.
That's good. Save some dollars. All right, buddy. Brian Noah, Fox Sports Radio. I love talking ball with you, man. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Chad. Have me on anytime, dude. Always love catching up with you. And you have yourself a great evening. And here's to no mattresses flying off into the Columbian River if anybody else is dragging them across town.
I'll drink to that. Well, big thanks to Brian Noe. Always love catching up with my brother from Fox Sports Radio and getting a chance to talk some ball. Sounds like he's pretty excited about the Final Four. And you know where I come out on the matchups. I just want Cooper Flagg to advance and be a part of the championship game coming up on Monday. That's really what I care mostly about, because I want to see him on that stage. I want to see him perform, and this is going to be our last chance to see him in college basketball, so I want it to last as long as possible because I really believe that he is a special player. He's an elite player, and he's going to be a great story to follow in the NBA because he's a great domestic product. He's a domestic story, and that's, those are the type of guys we like to follow. So big thanks to B. Noe, Fox Sports Radio, for joining the program. We're going to kick it over to the Hillsboro Hops here in a couple of moments. They are in their home opening series to kick off another brand new season. They're taking on Eugene, and it might be a good time for you to head out to the ballpark. The weather's actually pretty nice today. No rain. It was beautiful all the way down to Spirit Mountain Casino, but it's craft beer night at Hillsboro Hop Stadium. So they're going to have brews. You can watch the game, and they're going to have a situation set up where you can taste some of the finest local beers and ciders from over 10 presented by Breakside Brewery and Pelican Brewing Company. So a good time to hit the ballpark tonight. It's rare that we get these early April days where you get nice weather like we have today. So get out there and enjoy it. And, of course, enjoy the basketball, too. Now, coming up on Monday, I'm going to be back down here at Spirit Mountain Casino for a couple of different things. One, I'll be doing the RipCity Drive live from 3 until 6 here inside the sportsbook at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. And, of course, we got the championship game. We'll see who the two teams are going to be competing in the title game from San Antonio on Monday. But I'll be down here live with prizes to give away. So that's going to be pretty awesome. And then also I'll be hosting the March Mania drawing. So a chance for you to come down, get in on the action with the championship game. I'll be down here handing out prizes, and then you can participate in the March Mania drawing. So multiple things going on Monday, but I want you to come down and join me. And you've been watching the tournament, and the best way to take it in is come hang out at Spirit Mountain Casino with their plush sportsbook, the cushy chairs. They've got right across the way, I'm looking at it right now, 10 Barrel Brewing where you can get a bite and a brew. They've got the stadium bar, and just hang out and watch ball and watch it come to fruition, the championship. And then we can, close the door on the Final Four and move on and get ready for the thick of things in baseball. And hopefully not too long from now we'll be getting back into football. And, of course, we got the NBA playoffs coming up here in just a little over a week. So it's a good time to get down to Spirit Mountain Casino. But that's the plan for Monday. RipCity Drive live from 3 until 6. Championship game from San Antonio. And I'll be hosting the March Mania drawings from your Northwest Premier Entertainment destination. But what a beautiful day. And I do appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining me on this special Saturday. It's nice to get on and do a Saturday show and remember my roots, but I appreciate your time. Big thanks to Justin Ballinger, Sportsbook Manager, for joining us on the program today, and, of course, Brian Noe. And I'll be back down here on Monday live for the RipCity Drive starting at 3 o'clock here on your home of the Blazers, 620 RipCity Radio. Now, for the Trailblazers, just a little friendly reminder, 4 games to go in the regular season. Next game is going to be tomorrow, a matinee tip against the San Antonio Spurs at 3. Tickets are available at trailblazers.com. And then they have a game on Wednesday in Utah against the Jazz, Friday at home against the Golden State Warriors, and Sunday, the season finale, a week from tomorrow against the LA Lakers at Moda Center. That game's going to tip off at 12:30, so 4 more games to go in the Trailblazer season. All right, that's going to do it for me. We'll now kick it over to the Hillsboro Hops as they get ready to take on Eugene for craft beer night here on your home of the Hops, 620 RipCity Radio.